Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen, and I am a professional ring announcer and MMA cage announcer. And I'm joined this week by my two friends who, dare I say, bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing to you first, from New York, Mark Priaulx. What's up, buddy?
What's happening, everyone? I'm trying to recover from the depression that Saturday was. I can't believe that I am going to have to relive it and talk about it on this show. Not happy. Not happy. Hurts my heart.
And introducing from Florida, the Sunshine State, he is the Nicaraguan nightmare, Omar Artola. What's up, my friend?
What's going on? Had my 2-year wedding anniversary with my wife this past week.
Hey.
And we spent it. Thank you. We spent it doing Muay Thai together, so that was fun. That was a good time.
I loved that clip, dude.
Yeah.
That was her first time doing Muay Thai?
Pretty much. Like, she used to do those.
Why was her technique so
She used
solid?
to do those bullshit UFC gym classes that are basically like booty boot boxing kind of shit.
Okay, but like her form was good.
I said the same thing. I
Yeah.
said the exact same thing. Something tells me it's from, at this point, years of watching me just do it in the house, too, and watching fights at this point. But I told her she should keep doing it. She looks really fucking good doing it, so hopefully she keeps up with it.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Well, gentlemen, I'm drinking some Angel's Envy bourbon aged in port barrels, and it is delicious.
I haven't drank on this show in ages. Remember we used to drink, you and I, like every episode?
Yeah, in the beginning.
And we just, there's too much drinking.
I'm really drinking my sorrows away on behalf of Charles Oliveira. So let's get.
Jeez.
Yeah, you definitely are. Oh my God. I mean, I was rooting for Charles pretty hard, but you are a Charles guy.
Way to be on the right team.
We had to call an emergency therapist and everything for Mark.
Yeah, man. Well, we all picked Charles last week, if I do recall. So we're all, eating a plate of crow this week. So let's get into that. Real quick, the rundown of the show, folks. We're going to start, as we always do, with our first segment on the marquee. We're going to talk about all the fights from UFC 280 this past weekend. We're going to dive into the Priaulx Rankings, updating Mark's ranking system off of the heels of this pay-per-view. Then we're going to talk about one on Prime Video 3 from this past weekend. We're going to go inside the MMA sphere and get the update from Omar on the goings-on outside of the cage in the MMA world. We're going to touch on Bellator 287 real quick, get an update on that from Mark. And then we're going to look ahead to this weekend, UFC Fight Night, Kattar versus Allen, a big main event in the UFC featherweight division. And then we might end with a little bit of trivia. I don't know, because it sounds like it might be a 4-hour show. Before we get into any of these fights, boys, let us first thank our audience and our listeners. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, thank you so much. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you haven't done so yet, and if you like what you've been watching, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you can watch each and every single one of our videos and clips. And, of course, my favorite form of engagement, I know the guys' favorite form of engagement is when you guys leave comments on our videos. Let us know your takes, if you disagree with any of our takes, if you agree with any of our takes, any of our picks, etc., etc. We love those comments and the thoughtful engagement down in the comment section. If you want audio only, hey, we got you there. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, find us on social media, on all the socials, at @ANDU_MMA show. With that being said, let's get on with the show. Boys, this week, the name on the marquee has got to be Islam Makhachev, who this past weekend, October 22nd, this past Saturday night at the Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi, UAE, defeated the UFC lightweight champion Charles Oliveira by submission via arm triangle. The official time, 3:16 of the second round. In doing so, Makhachev becomes the new UFC lightweight champion. Mark, let me send it over to you. What was your reaction? And also, I want to know your process from the end of that event up to the beginning of this podcast episode. What has your journey been emotionally?
Oh, dude, it was hard. I mean, like you guys know, we try to be objective on this show, but there are certain fighters who just are our favorites. Charles is one of mine. If you're a new listener to this show, I have been calling Charles as a future champ since 10 years ago. I don't even know. Through the losing streaks, used to always say he was the most difficult matchup for Khabib. Even when he wasn't ranked, I would ask for that. So I was so excited to see him fight Islam, make me look smart, since Islam is kind of like the second version of Khabib here. And this just did not go my way. And it was hard because usually these things are at night and you kind of go to sleep. You sleep it off. You wake up the next day and you're like, all right, new day. This thing was in the middle of the day. And I'm like, fuck, I'm just supposed to go hang out with my kids and eat dinner. And I was not in the mood to be doing any of that. So it sucked, man. It sucked. It was disappointing.
Mark's just staring into his peas at dinner, just dejected.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, most people don't have this take. I've always kind of had this take. I don't know why. I wish I didn't. It even feels like it's a little bit of an ignorant take in a way on my part. But I could never get into Khabib and Islam like I can a lot of other fighters. To me, in this fight, you have one of the most dynamic, exciting, unpredictable fighters in the sport with one of the best stories in the sport in Charles, who gets beat with relative ease, and he gets beat by another guy of this Khabib mold who, to me, is kind of boring. And it has nothing to do with his talent. Obviously, his talent is through the roof, and I will get to that. But the sport of MMA, to me, I love it for the stories, for the pageantry, for the unpredictability, the excitement. And these guys with this style just don't do it for me. I don't know what it is. As good as they are, all their fights, Khabib and Islam, I find them somewhat boring, and I wish I didn't. But for some reason, that's how I view their fights. So I don't know. I feel like the lightweight division almost loses buzz to me with him as champ, but I'm sure you guys probably feel different. I'm sure a million of you listeners feel different. For some reason, that is how I'm wired. But let me move past all the negativity and get to the fight. There was one aspect of the game that swung this whole fight, and it was the striking improvement of Islam Makhachev. We've always known Islam could strike through all the comparisons he gets to Khabib. We've always noted that he's a better striker than Khabib was. Javier Mendez has always noted it. It's kind of accepted. But he wasn't ever someone who appeared to be some elite striker. And the jump that he seemingly made from his last fights, and maybe we just haven't seen it for a bit because he was able to take these guys down so easily. So maybe he has been making these jumps in the striking and it was hidden almost because he didn't have to use it, so we didn't know it. But the jump that he seemingly made coming into this fight was incredible. I thought, as I said on here last week, that the striking would be the key for Charles. I thought maybe he'd be able to overwhelm Islam there. And it was the direct opposite. Islam's straight left was an absolute laser. It was a piston. His timing was perfect throughout. Every time Charles stepped in, he made him pay. And yeah, the fight did end on the ground, but in the actual ground exchanges, like what we saw in round one, Charles did fantastic. Islam wasn't able to do much of anything. There was no sub-attempts. There was nothing even really close. There was no big shots on the ground necessarily. Charles was active on bottom. He was threatening himself. He was mixing in some elbows from the bottom. He had the up kick. It was really, really competitive. And really all of round one was competitive. And then round two was pretty close again, if you remember. It's funny because in retrospect, it feels like that fight wasn't competitive. But it was. It's just that the ending wasn't. In round two, even Charles is stuffing takedowns. I think it's 2 takedowns that he stuffed in the beginning of that round. And you're like, wow, okay, maybe Charles has decided he's going to keep this standing now. We're about to see how this plays out on the feet. And then it turns on a dime. He tries to throw this jump knee. He doesn't keep his hands up. He did kind of try to put it up, but it got behind the ear somehow, and he left his whole jaw open. And, you know, Islam lands clean with the right, drops Charles, drops him to a point that Charles was, I guess, a bit stunned, and he kind of let Islam dive right into that position where Charles' arm was already up over his head, and then by the time he really had his wits back and tried to fight it or tried to roll to his side, there was nothing he could do it, and it was too late. So to Charles' credit, I feel like a lot of people are treating it like it was dominant, and like I said, I get that because the ending kind of made it feel dominant, but it wasn't. It was a competitive fight to the point that if it was to happen again, I don't think there's any reason to think Charles could not be live in a matchup with Islam. But to Islam's credit, he took the one aspect of his game that made me think maybe some of these guys could beat him, and he turned it into a strength that just let him dethrone the champion. So pretty incredible, and if his striking is this good, I don't know who's taking this belt off of this guy. So the lightweight title is back in Dagestan. It took a little hiatus. It has gone back, and it may be there for a while.
Omar, what was your reaction to the performance of Islam as well as the performance of Oliveira?
One of the main takeaways that I had was I expected Charles to do more. There's a lot of aspects of his game that I thought would work in his favor, specifically his knees and his kicks, and there didn't seem to be as many of those thrown as we normally see him, at least in his last few fights that we've seen him throw. He looked a lot more reactive in this fight as opposed to in his other fights where he's seemingly coming forward all the time. Probably the jab was keeping him at bay. But again, it did throw Oliveira's game off. He didn't look comfortable, I think, at all in that fight. When he did get dropped to the ground, I was like, oh, maybe it's Oliveira's time to win.
Yeah,
and then,
I know.
Then not so much.
You thought he was going to charge up.
I got to say, I really didn't see it happening via submission. We should call out this boy who commented on one of our videos last week, T. Coleman. Islam by sub and with ease.
Why didn't I see that comment? I never even saw that.
I didn't even respond to it until after the fight happened, and then I was like, you get credit for that because who the hell?
Yeah.
So it was rough to watch.
That's weird.
Yeah, it was rough to watch. I expected more from Charles. I didn't get it. I kind of agree with Mark a little bit on the Islam and Khabib thing, but I almost equate it to sort of like Floyd Mayweather, where Floyd Mayweather is very good at what he does. His defense is impeccable. His defense is impeccable. His timing is everything. You know what I mean? It's he's got the whole package with the exception of his fights for whatever reason being exciting, and it's because he does enough to not get damaged and does enough to win the fight. I would say Khabib and Islam probably a little bit more dominant because they do have some finishes here and there. Khabib, I would imagine, less so. But I think the game is very similar in the sense that they are good at what they do. What they do also nullifies the other person and what they do. And so we end up getting this sort of stagnant, one-sided fight that eventually will either lead to some sort of decision we're already assuming that they've got. On a rare, nice occasion, at least this was a finish that I didn't see coming, so that was definitely an exciting portion of the fight. But it was just a disappointment as an Oliveira fan more than anything. And like Mark said, we do our best to be unbiased here, but sometimes shit just hurts.
Yeah, man. I will say one take just to jump in that I really disagree with. I think it might have been Luke Thomas who said this, and I was surprised because I have a hard time disagreeing with a lot of what Luke Thomas says because I find him to be such a smart, very thoughtful guy in the MMA world, sometimes to a fault, and which drives me crazy sometimes.
He definitely knows how to use a lot of big words, I can tell you that.
Yeah, man. And this was a take that he actually gave pretty strongly, which I disagree with. I wonder what you guys think. He said something like, at this point, given the performance of Makhachev over Oliveira, since Oliveira against Khabib was the matchup that everyone always wanted and we never got, given how this night went against Makhachev, we can know how it would have gone against Khabib. And I completely disagree.
I completely disagree also.
Because I feel that Makhachev is actually, to me, Makhachev is a very different fighter from Khabib, and it's not that nuanced to me. Like he's such a different striker. Khabib was not a striker in any regard, in my opinion. I feel a fight against Khabib would have been way different. Would have been much more of a wild fight, I believe, because Khabib was also sort of an awkward, scrappy striker who's just pretty much trying to set up a takedown, whereas Makhachev is like a robot, man. This guy is a safe striker. He's solid on the feet, and I just feel that it would have been much different against Khabib. I'm wondering what your guys' take would be.
I couldn't have said that any better than you just said it. I don't think it is a apples to apples comparison. Not saying Islam is better than Khabib. It's not a better thing. It's just how they match up with Charles thing. And Khabib's striking never reached a point that looked anything like what Islam showed in the cage on Saturday. I don't think Charles would have had as hard of a time getting his strikes off against Khabib. I'm not saying he would have won. It's possible that still Khabib gets him down and things play out the same way. But it's also possible he's able to land cleaner on Khabib than he was able to do on Islam. So, yeah, I don't think that fight is necessarily indicative of how things would go.
It's not a hill I would die on, but I don't necessarily disagree with his take, to be honest. I think at the end of the day, that fight goes down to the ground regardless of how it starts. Khabib was one of those guys that pressure fought. If you look at the way Khabib fought, the way that Kane fought, the way that DC fought, they'll take some shots, but they're going to go forward and they're not going to back up. Eventually, they're going to get to a point where the distance is so close that they're going to be able to take you down.
Yeah, but Charles was fine on the ground. The only time he wasn't fine on the ground is when he got rocked.
Again, I'm not going to die on the hill. I don't think Charles was doing that fantastic on the ground. He definitely was. If Charles had stayed on the ground that entire time, the way that first round went, Charles loses that fight.
Well, yeah, because he was on bottom. But I don't think Islam was accomplishing much.
I think he hit him. I think he hit him with some big shots. I don't think he was like, Tito Ortizing the guy, but he was definitely hitting him, and he was definitely being active from top.
Yeah, I feel Charles hit him just as much as he hit Charles.
Okay.
The up kick was definitely the most significant strike, I think, of those exchanges as far as damage was concerned. But Islam had a lot of good control and a lot of good ground and pound in that first round.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah,
it's all good.
There's no way, obviously, to really know. But at the same time, I think the ground game is so similar that if it does go to the ground, I still think Khabib would get it done.
See, I even think that their ground games are different in a kind of a fundamental way.
Oh, I don't.
How so?
I see Khabib as primarily a ground and pound wrestler, whereas I see Makhachev as much more of a submission hunter.
A suffocator.
A suffocator.
I
like that.
Khabib was you could call him a suffocator too, but I again agree with you. We have the exact same view on this, it seems. Khabib was more like a drowner. Like he put so much on you that he just waited until you drowned, waited until you moved the wrong way. Islam just suffocates you. He just digs his shoulder into your chin, pins your hips, squeezes your legs together. And Khabib did those things, but it's Islam's whole ground game, I feel. There's not as many openings in Islam's ground game.
Yeah, and also, I don't know, I feel like somebody's doing some fuckery with heights, because to me, Islam always looks like a giant at 155 compared to his opponents.
He does. He looked. There was a girl that I was watching. I went to watch the fights this weekend with people from Tampa Muay Thai, and so we all got together and watched it at a bar and ate some food and stuff like that. And one of the girls that I trained with was super pissed off that this fight even happened, because she's like, Islam looks so much fucking bigger than Oliveira. She's like, it's not even fair. He looks like he's an entire weight class above Charles Oliveira. And while I don't necessarily agree with that take, I have to admit that he did look pretty goddamn gigantic that night of the fight.
I've heard a lot of people say this, and I gotta be honest, I didn't notice.
You don't think so? Okay.
In my brain watching, I feel like I remember them being the same size. I almost
they're the same height.
Go watch it again.
And at the stare down, they're pretty much
height?
eye to eye. They're both listed at 5'10".
Stare down, they were legit eye to eye, nose
eye
to nose, like identical height.
Oh wow!
But then it's not just. I mean, part of it is the height to me, because I feel like Islam feels bigger and taller to me than many of his opponents. I'm like, God, this guy's he's so big at 155, but then I see it. He's only 5'10". It's like I always think that he's like 6 foot or even 6'1". But also I looked and Khabib is listed at 5'10". So there's some BS.
Well, they
Why,
both.
you think Khabib is taller than Islam?
No, I think Islam's much bigger than Khabib.
Really? I feel like they're like the same height.
Okay. I don't know. All right. Let's get out of
Both
this
of
rabbit
those
hole.
dudes cut in a ridiculous amount of weight. In
Yes.
order to be
Oh, yeah, they do.
They look crazy when they're on the scale.
I'm looking for a picture of them next to each other. Islam does look taller by like maybe an inch or two.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, a couple inches maybe in the pictures. That is
Somebody's
fuckery.
lying. Someone's lying.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where these guys go from here. When we talk about where Islam goes from here, we're really not talking about Islam now because he's the champion. We're really talking about who's next for the belt. So, Mark, let me start with you. Who's next for the belt?
Well, obviously we know the answer to this question. The short guy, as stated by Islam. It's not my favorite choice, if we're being honest. I do really think he should be defending against Beneil Dariush. He was supposed to fight Beneil. We'll get to Beneil. He was incredible on Saturday. I wish that's the route we were going. I wish Volkanovski was going to defend once more at featherweight, and then we could do this. I just don't like... I never love when a guy becomes the champ of a division and then immediately takes on a challenger from another division. Like, it just feels off to me. I'm like, let that guy, like, earn being the champ first for a second. Let him defend it once. Then someone else from another division could come. Like, the doing a super fight right away thing feels kind of weird to me. So, yeah, I don't know what I think of Volk's chances in that fight. Like, if Charles couldn't get inside to strike successfully, I really don't know how Volk will. Obviously, he is significantly smaller than Charles and Islam. But he's also really, really hard to keep a hold of. So who knows, I guess. Obviously, we'll break that one down when the day comes. But it seems like that's where we're headed. It's going to be in Australia, so there'll be a little bit of an edge for Volk in that way. So we will see.
That'll be weird, man. I saw Volkanovski say about himself. He's like, I've got little legs, mate. Or like something about him having such small legs that it's easy for him to get back up. I'm like, okay.
I mean, I get it. I'm Googling his height right now.
5'6".
I feel like he's, I was going to say 5'5", so he's 5'6".
Oh. Yeah.
What's the reach? I know he has a big reach.
For his height.
Reach is 71.
Wow. So that's
What's
a 5'11"
Charles'
reach.
Charles is 74. Yeah, so see, it's still, what's Makhachev's reach? 71. So they do have the same reach.
Wow,
I don't know.
the same reach. That's crazy.
He just feels. We're just talking about how big Islam is, and like Volk is not big.
It will be interesting to see Volk though not having to cut weight or not as much weight. I'm very interested to see what that Volk looks like.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sticking with you, Omar, what are your thoughts on Volkanovski moving up to challenge for the 55 belt?
I don't hate it as much, and probably because I really want to see this fight. But at the same time, Dariush, I mean, I feel like Dariush is just a man strapped and just getting continuously molested in his butt. Because it's just everywhere we turn, the man does exceptionally well at whatever it is he's asked to do. And they're like, good job, buddy, pat on your back. We're going to do something else anyway. Like, that is the performance that, and we're going to get to Dariush in specifics here, but that's exactly what you need to do to get a title shot, as far as I'm concerned. Dariush couldn't have done anything differently than what he did that weekend to get a title shot, and he's still not going to get one.
Real quick, where's he from? Is he a California guy? Dariush?
He's Iranian born.
No, I know that, but I mean in America.
Oh,
I think California. I'm pretty sure
California
that's
guy.
right.
I'll say this about Dariush, and I love Dariush. And I know that we all love Beneil Dariush. And the thing is that Beneil Dariush is a purist's fighter. From a promotional standpoint, I can imagine why I can kind of see why he doesn't get that push, because how many fights does this guy have? How many amazing finishes does this guy have? And yet he is not a star. Beneil Dariush is a star to us, but he's not a promotional star.
He's not a star. I would never call him a star. He's not.
He's just not. He's the most unassuming guy. He wears T-shirts. He has salt and pepper hair that he doesn't really get a haircut.
45.
Right. Like in plain clothes and street clothes, you have no idea this guy was a killer.
Yeah.
He's the most unassuming, quiet guy. I don't think I've ever heard him say more than a few words. Yeah, exactly. So, and not to hold that against him, but I'm just saying I can see from a promotional standpoint that why they're not pushing him as much as they would push Charles or Dustin or Gaethje or Chandler.
Yes, for sure.
Omar, you had something to say.
I do think it sucks, though, man, because to be honest, this was probably my favorite performance from Dariush.
Oh, my God.
Oh, I love
so
it.
good.
Yeah.
He's so good.
And it's crazy because Dariush has a nice string of submission finishes and KO finishes and wild fights, but this fight with Gamrot was, I think, by far my most exciting Dariush fight I've ever seen.
Yeah, man.
Well, on that note, to move off of Islam and Volk, I will at least be rewarding Dariush by matching him with Charles. That's where I would go with Charles.
Oh, nice.
I know that we have Poirier and Chandler coming up.
Nice transition there.
I'm sure that the winner of Poirier and Chandler is expecting a big fight, but I don't need to see one of them fight Charles again already. I think Dariush and Charles is the way to go. They've been matched up before and it fell out. I think the scrambles will be incredible. I think whoever wins that fight, you can put in with the winner of Islam and Volk if you wanted to. Maybe not if the winners are Islam and Charles. Maybe you wouldn't do that one again right away. But any of the other combinations work. That's what I'm doing with Charles and Beneil.
Omar, what are your thoughts on Charles Oliveira and his next opponent?
I like it. I just laugh at the thought of somebody calling up Beneil and being like, hey, so we're going to have you fight Charles, and then if you win this one, then we'll get you the title shot.
Yeah, maybe.
Unless Poirier or Chandler have some insane knockout, then you might have to fight one of them.
This poor guy, man.
Usman might move down to 155. Who knows? I don't know.
I mean, I will say, I do love that fight. Beneil and Charles. Oh, my God.
Oh, it's such a fun fight.
What a great fight, man. What a great fight.
We are one more. They screwed with Beneil for me to start this hashtag justice for Beneil. I'm telling you right now.
Justice for Beneil, man. Dude, all these guys in like the top 5, top 6 of lightweight, man. They could just keep fighting each other, and I will be there with my popcorn.
Facts.
Let's move on for the sake of time because we have many more dense topics to get to. All right, congrats to Islam Makhachev, not just for winning the lightweight title, but for being on our marquee, of course. In the co-main event, man. This fight, so many things to talk about. Aljamain Sterling defended his bantamweight title against TJ Dillashaw by TKO in the second round, the official time 3:44 of round number 2. Omar, let's start with you. Take us through your reactions of this fight, the events that occurred with TJ's shoulder popping out, and also the interview afterwards, obviously, where he confessed to it popping out numerous times.
Yeah. I have a couple different thoughts on this. The first one is it's really hard to take away anything significant from that fight because that shit happened almost immediately. The other side of the coin is I'm really happy that TJ got his ass beat because at some point karma was going to need to bite that kid right in his ass. And I'm kind of glad we all got to see it a little bit. Didn't really mean anything. Who knows what that fight would have actually been if TJ had 2 working arms, especially from the ground, being able to post up and et cetera, et cetera. But I was content watching him get his face beat in. So kind of like 50-50 on the fight a little bit.
Okay.
If you have heard me speak on this show, you know damn fucking well where I'm going to start with this fight. Fuck TJ Dillashaw. Fuck this guy. He knows that he's a one-arm fighter since fucking April and doesn't tell anyone. He takes a title shot that someone else could have had so he can go in there and have 0 chance of winning. And you know who he fucking took the title shot from? Jose fucking Aldo, the guy that deserved it, the guy that should have had the title shot. I've said for a while now that Jose was the worst matchup for Aljamain Sterling in this division. Jose might have won the damn title, become a 2-weight champion, added to his unreal legacy and still be fighting right now as the bantamweight champion instead of being retired selling hamburgers. So I say again, fuck TJ Dillashaw. I'm not happy about this friggin' development. As for Aljo, I honestly feel bad for this man. From the illegal knee to half the world pretending that he didn't beat Petr Yan in the rematch to now having this win dismissed because of TJ's injury, he just can't seem to catch a break during this title run, and it's kind of taken the shine off of just how good he is. Like, let's not forget, he took TJ down nearly immediately before TJ's shoulder even came out. And, you know, what can you do? He did exactly what he should have done. He put it on TJ, he gets him out of there in 2 rounds, defends his belt, and he marches on to the next. So, fuck TJ Dillashaw for what I said first, fuck him for stealing some shine off of Aljo, and fuck him for this whole scenario, and that is my theme of the week. That man can go away for all I care.
I think he might be done, man. I mean, for those who might not know, in the post-fight interview in the Octagon, TJ Dillashaw confessed that he blew out his shoulder in camp in April, and that from April to now, his shoulder popped out and dislocated, he said, maybe 20 times in camp. But he still took the fight, and he didn't tell anybody, because I guess he wanted the payday, and he wanted the chance to have a puncher's chance to win the title.
He said he didn't want to wait a year.
Cub Swanson said a month ago they were training and TJ couldn't even lift up his arm.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like,
and I'll tell you this, Mark is a gambler. So I don't think you picked this one for this. I don't think you picked TJ to win this fight.
no, I bet on Aljo.
But
By
Mark
sub.
has brought up this
TKO.
point before where guys do this shit and fuck up people's parlays and fuck up people's money and all their picks because they go in
It's a great point.
bet on one guy to be one way, and then you find out, oh, I've been fucked up for the last 6 months. I was never going to be that guy that you bet on.
Great point.
So
Imagine being a huge TJ fan, and I don't even mean someone with a lot of money, just someone like us. You're a huge TJ fan. You're watching this, and you're like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I haven't made a big bet in a while. I'm going to throw $1,000 on TJ because I really think he's going to win. And then you find out he's fighting with one arm 10 seconds into the fight. Like, you want to jump out your window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a TJ fan of his fighting style. I regard TJ the way I regard Colby Covington. Like, not a fan of his antics, Colby, of his style of like trash talking. It's just annoying. But in the cage, I love watching that guy fight. I watch that guy and I'm like, this guy's so good. I feel that way about TJ, man. Fucking blood doping or not. Blood doping or not. You know, fucking whatever, however you do it, like taking a syringe and taking out your own blood so that you can put it back in. Doing that does not change the way he fights. And the way he fights, the way that Dwayne Ludwig has developed TJ's fighting and striking prowess, I love watching TJ strike. That being said, the guy clearly is a competitive asshole. Like, he's competitive to the point where it makes him into a giant gaping asshole.
Yeah.
And
I mean, even from his perspective, like, what do you think he was going to win?
right.
Like, you know you're not going to win. In friggin' May, be like, hey, guys, I can't fight. Give this fight to Jose Aldo. I'm going to recover, and in the spring, I'll fight the winner. Like, how difficult is that?
Yeah. And then Jose goes and just retires. He's like, I'm done. That's it.
We should clarify for Jose's sake that he owns a chain of burger spots. He is not selling hamburgers, as one may have interpreted that.
I wasn't trying to
comment.
besmirch the man. I meant he's focusing on his hamburger business.
You had a lot of feelings in that moment. I just need to make sure people know.
I was assuming people knew he owned a hamburger chain, which
he's not
obviously
out there
most people
flipping
probably
burgers
don't.
and
So,
shit,
yeah,
you know.
fair. Okay, fair. Yes,
But dude, I also agree with you. I think that he would have been a very interesting match. Jose would have been a very interesting matchup for Aljamain Sterling.
Oh, it would have been incredible. Yeah.
That being said, I really do think that we may have seen the last of TJ Dillashaw in the UFC, or maybe in fighting overall. Because to say that you've dislocated your shoulder 20 times over the past 4 months or 6 months or whatever, how do you come back from that? Ever?
Well, he's gonna need to get his shoulder repaired. The problem is he let it go on for so long. It's not like he got surgery in the middle of the camp. He just let it be. He's got to go. He's got to get it repaired at this point. He's got to get it surgically repaired. Probably
Even
very
that.
similar to what what's his
Pico.
name?
Yeah, he should fight Pico. That's what he should do.
And
Just both use
Ryan
one arm
Ortega.
and see who's
Now,
better.
now hold on. Now that's an interesting angle because both TJ Dillashaw and Aaron Pico both train with the same, I think, strength and conditioning guy, Sam Calvito.
Really? Wow.
And they both tore their shoulders out like weeks apart.
Supposedly Pico's had this issue for a long time, though. Like his whole career.
Could be
think I
just
remember
a
him
huge
that.
coincidence, but very strange.
Mike's ready to nail Sam Calvito to the wall right now.
Okay, so talking about where these guys go from here, that's my take on where TJ goes from here. But let's talk about Aljo. What's next for the bantamweight title? Who do you think deserves the next shot? I guess Omar. Give me a name at 135 pounds.
So I believe there's already a little bit of things in the work for Aljo. Obviously, they were talking about Jan and the winner of Jan O'Malley getting the next title shot against Sterling. That seems to be potentially a backup, maybe if this doesn't come through. But right now, they are looking at Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo, and they are looking to do that in Australia in February.
Wow. As the co-main under Volkan Islam.
Yep.
Aljo would co-main to Islam again. Yeah, it seems like that's the rumor. I think it's wild to take a guy who hasn't fought in 2.5 years and throw him right into a title shot. Like, I get it, he's Henry Cejudo, but, like, we couldn't have him win a fight first, especially at bantamweight where he's fought, like, twice, I think. So, not my favorite choice. To me, this title shot should be going to Chito Vera right now. As I said, Henry hasn't fought in ages. O'Malley won controversially. O'Malley's lone career loss is to Chito Vera, who is the other top contender at the moment. To me, that should all add up to him getting the title shot. I think it should be Aljo and Chito. But I guess we're getting Aljo and Henry. It's going to be the first guy who could really test Aljo's wrestling in a way that we haven't seen. We will see if a 3-inch height advantage and 7-inch reach advantage for Aljo and a generally larger body in every way will be able to overcome a Olympic caliber wrestling when it comes to the wrestling department. So we'll see. But yeah, it sounds like that's where we're headed.
Yeah, man. I mean, Cejudo hasn't been doing much these past couple of years. I know that he's been doing color commentary for a couple organizations. I know he's been doing color for Eagle, I think. But training-wise, we'll see what kind of shape he gets in.
To Cejudo's credit, the man has actually, for the first time in his life, actually been living his life. So give him a little bit of credit on that side because the man has been a professional athlete since he was like 5.
It's true.
And has been like wrestling nonstop, did the Olympics and the whole bit, did the UFC right after the Olympics. It seems like he didn't even really have a real relationship until he was like 30. And then like now has a real girlfriend. I think baby now? Baby?
Yeah, he's a kid. Yeah.
Look, he took, as soon as he got retired, he like crunched in an entire like 5-6 years of life into like 2 or 3 years. And I think he's just gotten to the point now where, he's gotten that part, I think, that was missing in his life fulfilled. And I think he sees opportunities. It would be hard for me to think that if I'm not Henry Cejudo and I'm not feeling myself like I would imagine he does, looking at Aljamain Sterling and being like, I can beat the shit out of that guy. And watching just fight after fight of guys that I feel like he thinks that he's better than them. And just like, I can't just sit here and just let these guys think that they're better than me or me not prove that I'm not better than them. So I think it's just his competitive nature is at work. He's still at an age now where he can perform, I think, at the peak of his ability. I think it'd be dumb to wait any longer than he's already has. So I'm down. I'm very interested to see what's been going on because Henry Cejudo hasn't been out of the gym. In fact, I would argue that what he's been doing lately with coaching people and kind of breaking down other people's games and opponents, fighters' games, it's made him better. His fight IQ at the end of his recent UFC run, I think, was some of the best fight IQ we've seen out of the champions in recent memory. So I would only imagine that's gone up since then, and I'm interested to see if he's actually gotten better over this stretch of time.
Yeah, it seems like he's got a great mind for the sport. Like every single guy that goes and trains at Fight Ready in Scottsdale basically says the same thing of how impressed they are with his mind for the game. So, as you said, it's not like he's been away. It's just that been a minute since he fought.
Yeah. All right, boys, in the interest of time, let's move on, unless you have anything else that you're dying to say about Aljo or TJ. That being said, in the Coco main event, also in the bantamweight division, Sean O'Malley defeated Petr Yan by split decision, earning a 29-28 on 2 of the judges' scorecards. Petr Yan earning his own 29-28. Mark, let me start with you. First and foremost, do you think Sean O'Malley is the rightful winner of this contest? How did you score it, and your thoughts on the fight overall?
Yeah, it's a shame that the only thing people want to talk about when it comes to this fight is how controversial the result was. And it's a shame for 3 different reasons. Number 1, Sean O'Malley arrived on Saturday. He went to war with the guy ranked number 1 in the division, took it to him, hurt him multiple times, showed heart. He looked like he every bit of belonged at the top. Number 2, that fight was incredible. That thing was an absolute war. It had ups and downs in every direction, huge spots, huge moments for each guy. Both guys had to dig deep. It was back and forth, and I appreciate the show they put on. Number 3, Sean O'Malley won the fight.
Wow.
That result was right. I wasn't sure live. Round 1 ended live, and I said, man, that was close. I think maybe Yan got it. Then, of course, I gave round 2 to Yan. I gave round 3 to O'Malley. On the rewatch, Sean O'Malley won that fight. I know there's probably a lot of you listening right now who scored this fight for Yan live who are pissed hearing me say this right now. I'll hear in a minute what you guys thought. I don't know if you have rewatched. As I said, live, I kind of thought it went Yan's way also. On the rewatch, I already thought Sean won round 3. I thought he won it even more clearly on the rewatch. Round 1, I had Sean ahead by a pretty clear margin at the time of the takedown, and Yan didn't do a ton with it. It was a nice takedown. He landed maybe 3 good strikes on the mat. Sean gets up. By my card, maybe Yan had kind of just tied it up as they stood, and then Sean O'Malley wins all of the final 40 seconds of round 1. So, as much as I was surprised rewatching the thing, I think Sean definitely won round 1 and round 3. So,
wow.
We'll hear what you guys think, but for me, it sucks for Sean that he did this, in my opinion, and he's getting knocked so much for it. I mean, you go on social media, every post about this fight is 100 people saying it was bullshit and whatever. But I was impressed. Sean O'Malley's movement, his change of direction, his switching stances, his length, and the way he just mixed up his strikes. It's all stuff that we've seen from him before, but to see him do it against a guy like Petr Yan, it's like, wow, all of this is real. And he gave Yan trouble from the jump. Of course, Yan adjusted like the stud that he is. Sean readjusted himself. And on top of that, I've heard a lot of people say, like, oh, man, Sean O'Malley's ground game is trash. Like, look what Yan was able to do to him in terms of bringing him down. What's he ever going to do against Aljo, blah, blah, blah. And I get it. Aljo will be a tough matchup. But, like, Sean O'Malley got up off the ground 4 times. The only time he didn't get up was the one where he got taken down close to the round ending. Every other time, he got up. And if it wasn't for those get-ups, we're not even having this conversation because he clearly loses that fight. He got up 4 times, and the get-ups off the ground are what allowed him to win. So that ability is not something to be knocked necessarily. And he also stuffed some takedowns late in that fight that were big too. So I left impressed by Sean. I saw a lot from him in this one, and I am happy to learn that he is this good because the Sean O'Malley experience is going to be fun.
Omar, what was your score?
I have not rewatched the fight. Watching the fight live, I did have Yan winning 1 and 2, and then I had O'Malley winning 3. Even live, I wasn't dying on either hill. That fight was close. The fight felt close. The only round I thought that was 100% clear without any dispute was round 2 for Yan. But round 1 and round 3, I think arguments could be made for both, frankly. I would want to watch it, I guess, again now at this point after hearing Mark kind of describe what he saw. But I guess, to be honest, while I was watching that fight, I was enjoying the fight for what it was, because it was nice to see O'Malley rise to the occasion. It was nice to see O'Malley fight somebody who complete a fight with somebody who wasn't a punching bag. Somebody who did give him some adversity. We saw Sean O'Malley finally get rocked, which came right after he basically rocked Jan.
Yeah,
Some real back and forth going on. It was a beautiful fight, man. I loved every minute of it. There was excitement from beginning to end. The accuracy on O'Malley is absolutely stupid. It reminds me of Conor McGregor. I don't want to, do this Sean O'Malley and Conor McGregor comparison, because I'm not doing that. What I am going to say, though, is the accuracy, specifically the accuracy with the punches, reminds me of Conor McGregor. There is a length that Sean O'Malley has when he throws those punches, and an accuracy with where those fists actually touch on the face that is not something you see every day, even in the higher weight, even in the elite stages of the UFC or MMA in general. So I took a lot of things away from that fight, both on Jan's side and both on O'Malley's side. Jan is a dog. Jan is absolutely a dog, and I think he showed that even if, when he was getting tagged up, that he has other facets to his game. Granted, he's not, ground and pounding people to hell. He's not Aljamain Sterling, but if he needs to switch it up, he can. And I thought his wrestling was actually pretty effective for what he was able to do, nullifying a lot of O'Malley's game. But again, O'Malley was able to get back up, and those get-ups are fucking hard, and they're exhausting. And he got up multiple times. And not only did he get up, he went right back to work as soon as he got back up.
Yep.
So there was a lot of great things that came out of that fight. That fight was very, very exciting from beginning to end. I understand if you were rooting for somebody that didn't win, why you feel the way you feel. It was a close-ass fight. But this is another one of those things where we have got to stop calling it a robbery. It was not a robbery.
Thank you.
It was a close fight. It was a close fight.
Yes.
It's exactly what it was. It was a close fight. For transparency's sake, every single media personality has Jan winning.
Yep.
Everyone. There's one dude, lone dude from MMA Junkie who voted for O'Malley. The peoples in the MMA's world, about 3,000 scorecards have been submitted for this fight. Jan has round one with 65%, and O'Malley has it with 32%. So a lot of people live, I'm assuming, saw it for Jan right off the bat for round one. Jan round two, 94%. Like I said, round two was the one that that's not up for discussion. Round three, O'Malley has round three at 55.5%. Jan has it at 42.2%.
I would love for someone to explain to me how Jan won round three, because he didn't.
He was, like I said, their round one and round three were the closest rounds, and they were close rounds.
Okay. I need you to promise me this. So, first of all, I want to point out, all those scores that have made decisions are live scores. All those come live. Those are scores that are submitted live on websites as the pay-per-view is happening. And as I said, live, I thought Jan won too. I want you to rewatch this fight. If you need my login for the pay-per-view, because you didn't buy the pay-per-view, right? I will give it to you. By next week, I want to hear how you scored this fight. And I'm very curious if you agree with me. And any viewers, I've said this before on the show. If you haven't watched it a second time, I don't want to read your comment. Don't leave me a comment. If you have watched it a second time and you have points to make of why you disagree with me, I am happy to discuss.
A lot of it comes down to how one scores or regards a takedown in which the person on top doesn't do much, in air quotes, doesn't do much with. And that's kind of what happened.
Modern day MMA scoring, we are not supposed to score it so heavily.
I think it's not only just that you don't score it a certain way or that it's scored heavily, but if the person who's gotten taken down doesn't do shit either, then you're left with the person on top winning. But O'Malley never really let himself be that person on bottom where he was just accepting the position. At all times, that kid was moving to the cage, getting his ass up, getting out of the clinch, and we're back. Like Mark said, the one time he was really stuck on bottom was at the end of round 1. That was the biggest moment of the takedown game that we saw throughout the entire fight. Every other time he got taken, was it round 2?
Round two,
right. The whole round 2. But he was able to get himself up in those moments in round 1 and round 3 to make it so that those takedowns don't hold as much value compared to the rest of the round.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about where these two elite bantamweights go after this fight. Let's start with the winner, Sean O'Malley. Omar, looking at the landscape of bantamweight, do you think Sean O'Malley needs to fight somebody else before he gets a title shot, or do you think he's more deserving than Volkanovski right now?
I would argue Volkanovski definitely deserves a huge fight like this. It would more be
Volkanovski. Well, because Volkanovski is the one.
Oh no, Volkanovski's.
Cejudo, you meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's like Volkanovski.
Yeah. Omar was trying to get his brain to connect to the question.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. No,
Cejudo.
I would think that Aljamain is more deserving of a larger fight than Cejudo is at this point. But with that being said, the fight that I think I would really want to see in the meantime, because we already know that Aljamain is booked, is Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera. I think now is the perfect time to get that rematch. They're both in beautiful positions right at the top 5 of the bantamweight division. I think at this point we can see them at the top tier of their skill, and we can really get to see who the number 1 contender is from there.
Oh, man. Couldn't agree more. If neither Chito or O'Malley is getting that title fight, let's do it. It's the perfect time. I'm certainly keeping O'Malley away from Merab. If I'm the UFC, that's the last thing I want to be booking. So O'Malley and Chito, man, I think it's perfect time to pull the trigger. The story is there. As Omar said, they're both at their absolute peaks right now. It's a huge fight that could easily co-main a pay-per-view. I wish it would be made 5 rounds, to be honest, but that's where I'm going for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it could only be more perfect if one of them had a belt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was when those two guys fought, given the how that fight went down. For those who don't know or might not remember that well, Chito Vera landed a calf kick that hit O'Malley pretty much on the side of the knee, and it kind of like turned his nerve off in his leg. Same thing happened to Michael Chandler in a fight in Bellator. And he immediately started, not immediately, he kind of gradually, more and more throughout the round, started like tripping and like rolling his ankle because basically like his foot like fell asleep. And he got finished. So it was kind of a controversial ending because it was a question of how much credit do you give Chito Vera because it happened because of his kick. Yeah. But it's kind of an atypical thing that happens from a kick. So, you know, there was a lot of heat going into that fight between those two guys. And coming out of that fight, it was like, man, would love to see those two guys match up again one day. You know, maybe if both of them reach the upper echelon of 135 pounds, and here we are, baby. That absolutely is the fight to make. I agree with both of you. Let's talk about Petr Yan for a moment. He has flirted with the idea of like leaving the UFC.
Yeah, wild.
Which is silly because the UFC doesn't control the judges.
Yeah.
So that aside.
So it's actually, I've seen kind of corrections to these reports that it's not necessarily leaving the UFC. It's like leaving the sport. That he's flirted with just being like, I'm done with it.
Oh, wow. That's silly. But
yeah.
He's emotional. He's emotional. He feels like he got robbed. And I get that. I mean, it's not like I'm going to be Petr Yan and being like, oh, no, that was a close decision. No, like, you know, he probably felt like he won in there. He knows what he did in there, and he just probably feels like it's enough. And this is the second decision I think he ends up getting shafted for you know.
He fucking lost to Aljo. Stop it.
You ask Petr Yan, he did not lose that fight.
The second fight?
Yeah. If you ask,
dude,
if
a
you
lot
ask
of people
Petr-
don't think he lost the second fight. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I've said this matchup before. I still love it. I know now Jan's lost 2 in a row. Maybe it doesn't make quite as much sense, but I really want to see Jan versus Merab. I love the matchup. I love Jan fighting against Aljo's team again. There's obviously some pre-existing beef there, even though it seems like these days they have kind of pieced things up. But book the fight, probably ramps right back up again. So give me that one. And, it's almost like, obviously it's still a huge fight for Merab to have a shot against Jan. And it's almost like for Jan, it's like, all right, we hear you. This is a huge opportunity. You beat Merab, you're still right there. So I think it's perfect.
Omar, any other names you want to throw out there?
I think Merab is the perfect one, to be honest. Stylistically, I think it's super interesting because Merab is sort of like they're both, I want to say, very similar fighters, but just Petr is just more of a stand-up fighter and Merab is more of a ground fighter, but they're both equally as insane in their respective fields of expertise. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how that matches up. Separately, if Petr Yan were to leave MMA, specifically MMA, I would kind of love to watch him in the Muay Thai game. I think that'd be dope.
Sure.
Just saying.
That would be cool. That'd be kind of surreal to see him there.
The only problem with these bookings is if it's Aljo Cejudo, O'Malley Cheeto, Jan Merab, Corey Sandhagen kind of gets fucked. There's like no one for him to fight, but there's like 7 guys in this mix right now, so
hey, man,
someone's getting fucked.
Arguably the best division in the sport right now. Let's move on, guys. Congrats to Sean O'Malley, man. Biggest win of his fucking life. Okay. Still in the main card, UFC 280 in the lightweight division. Beneil Dariush puts on a performance of a lifetime, turning back the up-and-comer prospect, Mateusz Gamrot, taking the fight by unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, and a 29-28 on the scorecards. Omar, let me start with you this time. What was your take on the heels of this performance by Dariush?
Overall, I feel like we previewed this fight pretty goddamn accurately. Gamrot was the wilder, scramblier fighter amongst the two of them, but Dariush's control and his technique was just superior. He was able to control him when he needed to. I actually thought Dariush scrambled fucking brilliantly. There were moments where he was rolling, just rolling in and out of things. I thought he did fantastic. His striking was ridiculous. The pace that he set, the forward pressure that he had for the entire fight was absolutely on point. The fact is doing that to Gamrot is not easy. I don't really care who you are. Being able to put on that kind of performance, that kind of pressure, that kind of pace on Gamrot and have Gamrot essentially a step behind, very difficult to do and very impressive having him having done it. So I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Like I said before, best Dariush I think I've ever personally seen in the octagon. I think it sucks he's not getting a title shot off of that performance because he fucking deserves it. But here we are. At the very least, hopefully he gets a fight that matters, like the Charles Oliveira one that we had kind of alluded to earlier, so that way, he's actually maybe in line for the next title shot, short of some other crazy nonsense happening. But lightweight has been notorious for being ridiculous and crazy with their rankings, so all we can do is hope.
Mark, what was your take on Dariush's awesome performance?
I was amazed. That was one of the most impressive defensive grappling performances I have seen in a long time. Beneil Dariush is not a human. Like, I don't think Gamrot ever had him controlled for even 2 Mississippi. Like, Beneil had an answer for every single thing that Mateusz Gamrot brought into that cage. He is so damn crafty everywhere. He is a truly unreal grappler. He started to figure out Gamrot's timing in the striking as the fight went on. Obviously ends up dropping him bad in round 3. Credit to Mateusz for surviving. But Gamrot got largely nullified here. Like, he kept trying. The guy goes. He only knows one way to fight, which is to go. But he got nullified for most of that fight. And as for Gamrot, I didn't really think he won his last fight either against Chookagian. So his game is kind of running into some walls here at the top. I do suspect he can tweak some things and be back. The talent is there, but Beneil showed out, man. Just his ability to scramble out of any and every position in mere seconds is like almost I can't even think of a fair comparison for someone who is so impossible to control. And he's such a tough fighter. And as we've said, he's a guy who deserves a title shot. He looked fantastic.
He does, man. He deserves it. Come on, guys, give it to him. How many has he won now? 1, 2, 3, 4. 8 in a row. 8 in a row for Beneil.
Wow. Yep.
My God.
Yeah.
He's been in the UFC since 2014.
And remember, this fight specifically, he came off of him like shattering his leg or snapping his leg or wherever the hell he did to his leg months ago, almost a year ago now. So.
Ankle, I think, right?
Yeah, something crazy he did to his leg in training.
Beneil Dariush had only 6 pro fights, and he was 6-0, and then he went to the UFC, and he is now 22-4-1.
Come on, get my man in there,
bro.
I mean, I'll take Charles and Benny though.
Imagine being Beneil Dariush right now, the level that you're at right now, looking back at your record and being like, "Fuck, I lost to Ramsey Nijem."
Yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah. It's always that way in MMA, man. There's always wild ones.
Hey, Ramsey was a fun one on Tough.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Guy. He was a fun guy to root for.
He had some pop.
He was funny.
There's a lot like that. Even whenever Charles fights and Felder's on commentary and they talk to Felder about how he beat Charles, and Felder's incredible.
Yeah,
but in my brain, and I remember the fight and everything, but in my brain, I'm like, how the fuck did Paul Felder beat Charles Oliveira? Like, you know? There's a lot like that.
Dude, remember Felder's knockout over last call? What's his name?
Oh, Danny
Castillo?
Yeah.
Castillo.
That spinning back fist. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Didn't he bust his arm doing that?
Oh, did he?
You might be right.
I feel like he busted his arm doing that spinning back fist. Because I don't even think it was the fist that landed. I think it was his forearm that landed.
You might be right.
Okay.
Anyway, way off track.
We've kind of alluded to what could be next for Beneil already, maybe matching up with Charles Oliveira. What's next for Gamrot, guys? Gamrot, he's creeping up in the rankings. He's kind of almost in the upper echelon of 155. Still a lot of guys he hasn't fought yet in the division. What do you think could be next for Mateusz Gamrot? Mark, why don't you go first?
Going a little outside of the box. Is Gregor Gillespie alive? Like, do we know? Like, what goes on? The dude was ranked. He wouldn't take a fight because he was only accepting fights against people above him. I think he was ranked like 10th at the time. He couldn't get anyone above him to fight him. They removed him from the rankings due to inactivity, and he's just gone fucking dark. Like, does he exist?
I don't see him.
I would love to see him and Gamrot in there.
Gregor. Where he's not? Where is he on? He's not. Oh, there he is. Yeah, he's like not even ranked. I'm looking at rankingmma.com
Because of inactivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. In mine, I haven't taken him out of mine. He is, just for what it's worth, he is 10th in mine.
Mark, we
10th
need you to make your own website like rankingmma.com for the Priaulx rankings.
But he is, let's see, when was his last fight? He's nearing the point where he would be removed from mine, but
okay,
it just hasn't.
What's the criteria for the Priaulx rankings?
I forget. I think it's 2 years as opposed to 1.
Wow. I love how he's like, I forget what my own criteria is.
I have notes.
Don't you have a key? Do you have a
in
legend?
the file? I have a key. Yeah.
Omar, do you have any names at 55 for Mr. Gamrot?
So, yes, I have one name. This person, though, has talked more about how they want bigger fights now. They don't really want ladder climbing fights, and I don't know if he'd take the fight, but I think RDA versus Gamrot would be a very fun and interesting fight.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah.
Well, he just went back to welterweight, remember, RDA. He's fighting Brian Barberena.
But, is he staying at welterweight?
Yeah, it's fair. Is he staying there? Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I could see him fighting. I mean, he is coming off of a loss. What if he fought Tony?
Dude, I'd be into that. That'd be great.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
He already beat Ferreira, excuse me.
I hear my cat's fucking something up.
He already beat Kutateladze. Okay, let's go on. Let's move on. Got a lot more to talk about, folks. Here we go now. At a catchweight of 127.5 pounds, Manon Fiorot out of France defeated blonde fighter Katlyn Chookagian by unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board on the scorecards. Omar, why don't you go first? Talk about our favorite fighter, Katlyn Chookagian, and the performances of these two ladies.
I had mixed feelings about this fight because I thought Manon Fiorot won this fight, but it almost didn't look like the Manon Fiorot I picked to win this fight. So I was happy that she won the fight, but at the same time she just didn't look the same. She looked worse than what she's looked in the past. I am not sure what the hell happened in that fight. Chookagian also didn't really look like she showed up either. Either she looked confused throughout that fight or eventually got overwhelmed by Fiorot's forward pressure, but Fiorot didn't do a really good job of mixing things up. I thought her striking was very one-dimensional. I was actually incredibly surprised that Chookagian couldn't figure out the timing and the distance because Fiorot kept throwing the same shit over and over again. It was a really, really weird fight. It's hard for me to take too much away because I feel like I've seen Manon Fiorot fight better than that. And I've also seen Chookagian fight better than that. But this is what they presented when they showed up. Manon Fiorot did what she needed to do, I guess. She definitely landed some shots, and she had a couple combinations that landed, but I've seen her be more versatile. I've seen her be better with different types of combinations, not the same one over and over again. It might have been something that she saw in Chookagian's game, perhaps, that they changed it up to do what they did in that fight, but overall, a very weird fight, not one that I expected to happen, but happy that Fiorot won the fight because, I want somebody new to fight Valentina at this point.
Mark, what was your take on Fiorot's win over Chookagian?
Actually, kind of the same take. They made for one of these odd matchups where their games sort of clashed in a way where they each had a bit of a hard time figuring the other out. Neither could really implement what they wanted to do so well. It was just kind of one of those that was a little bit ugly in a way, especially early. I thought round one was really sloppy. There wasn't much landing. Fiorot didn't look clean at all, and she normally looks so clean. Katlyn probably won round one, to be honest. But midway through round two, I did think that Fiorot at least got the timing and the range down more, which is where the fight changed and which is why she won. She was at least landing clean, certainly more often than Katlyn was. She was first in the exchanges, and then she was out. So Katlyn's punches were falling short. She kind of started to dictate the entries into range from that point forward for the rest of the fight. It wasn't the usual variety from her. The side kicks were still there. Fairly clean, responsible defensively. It was enough to get the job done for sure. It just wasn't as dynamic as Fiorot has looked in prior fights, but it was against the number one girl in the division. She now assumes that mantle on the back of the win. I agree she won. I thought she won rounds 2 and 3 for sure. So it wasn't anything super incredible, but it's hard to argue right now that she's not the number one contender, and I would have to think that a title shot is in waiting unless they kind of throw a curveball here.
Yeah, just sort of segueing right into it. I mean, she's right up there at the very top of the division, Manon Fiorot is. So you think this is enough? She got the win over Chookagian. She got the UD, all three judges. You think we're going, let's go title shot and put her striking against Shevchenko?
I would think so. The only thing that kind of threw me was that I heard John Anik mention on air during the fight the possibility of an immediate rematch between Shevchenko and Taila Santos, which is not something I considered. I thought Santos would absolutely have to get another win at least before she was back there, so I'm not sure why that's on the table. To me, Valentina versus Manon is the fight. I guess you could argue Grasso into the mix if you didn't really like how Manon looked, but I personally think Manon deserves it more. She hasn't lost in the UFC. Grasso's had a little bit of her ups and downs. I think it should be Manon. If for some reason we're not ready for a title fight, or if they ever did do Santos and Valentina, obviously Manon and Grasso could fight each other, which would be great. But if it's me, I think I'm booking Manon in a title fight.
Omar, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it seems crazy to me that they would rebook Taila Santos with Shevchenko.
Yeah, I was confused.
I mean, I get that fight was probably the closer of the opponents that she's had, I guess, in recent memory, but like having been the best to do the worst doesn't really make you in line for an immediate rematch. You still lost. Mm-hmm. If anything, Taila Santos should be fighting Alexa Grasso. That to me makes sense. That should be the fight. Mm-hmm. And Manon Fiorot, like I said, I think Valentina needs new blood. I think that last Ruby should be somebody that she's never fought before. Mm-hmm. Somebody who I think has actually been doing very well in the flyweight division. Even if you take away this last performance, she's looked spectacular in the ones before that. So, with the exception of, I think, of the first loss, I think, that she had coming in. She has one loss that she came in with, but...
yeah, I think that was her first fight of her career, like pre-UFC days.
She had one that she lost, though, in the UFC, didn't she?
No?
Nope. Oh, all right. Well,
yeah,
then
first fight of her career back in Cage Warriors. That's it. That's her only loss.
Even more so then. So I just think it's a fight that needs to happen. I think it would cement Valentina's legacy even more. Just another contender, another name that she hasn't fought. She knocks right back out.
Okay. I want to throw out a quick name for the blonde fighter, Katlyn Chookagian.
I would say Grasso for her. Assuming we are going Valentina and Fiorot, Grasso needs a fight. It's not the perfect fight since Katlyn just lost, but I'm not sure who else you give Grasso, so that's where I would go.
Omar?
I mean, I don't hate it. I would probably prefer for her to fight the winner of the Andrade-Lauren Murphy fight.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good point, actually. That is a good point.
Because, like I said before, I would prefer to see the Grasso-Taila Santos fight. Stylistically, I think that's a fun fight, and I think Grasso does deserve a fight of that caliber at this point, too. So I think making Chookagian wait a little bit, having her fight the winner of Lauren Murphy and Jessica Andrade is where I go.
Nice. Okay. Let's move on. Consequential fight in the welterweight division that headlined the prelims on UFC 280. Belal Muhammad defeated Sean Brady by TKO via punches at 4 minutes and 47 seconds of round number 2. Mark, let me start with you this time. What was your take on another W for the bully Belal Muhammad?
This was pretty fucking impressive from Belal, huh? That was a big statement. We got one of those grappler versus grappler fights where we don't get to see 1 single second of grappling. So that sucked a little bit. I was looking forward to that. I don't know if neither one of them felt like they could get in on the hips of the other or if it was just a game plan from the jump. Though I guess Sean Brady did try a couple times, maybe a little half-heartedly. But they stood and struck all fight. And it's funny because I actually thought Sean Brady was more so getting the better of the exchanges. I thought he won round 1. Yes, he was on the back foot. Belal came with this pressure game, but I thought Brady was landing more, landing cleaner, landing with more power. But that nonstop forward pressure of Belal Muhammad really paid off. He absolutely refused to take his foot off the gas. He ate every shot that came his way. Like a couple big shots where like his expression didn't even change and he just kept walking forward. The guy's got a hell of a chin. But yeah, he would just reset, walk forward, and eventually he wore Brady down and backed him up, was able to land a big one, and he just absolutely poured it on. I talk a lot about guys who know how to finish, who don't go too crazy, who don't miss the opportunity. That was knowing how to finish. My man stayed calm, stayed right in the pocket, mixed the shots, mixed the angles, kept it on him, didn't let him breathe, and forced the ref to jump in. Would I have maybe not jumped in if I was the ref? Maybe, but I get it. And it's a massive win for Belal Muhammad, as I said in the beginning. An absolutely huge statement to do that in that fashion to an undefeated fighter in Sean Brady.
Omar, what was your reaction to Belal taking the O of Sean Brady?
Omar, I think you're muted, dude.
Oh, you are muted.
Facts. I think Belal is he looked dominant. I think it's the most dominant we've seen him in recent memory, and I think that's saying something. He looked fantastic. I thought his striking was 100% on point. I thought he mixed up his wrestling really nicely. At the same time, I was kind of underwhelmed by Sean Brady just a little bit. His striking, I thought he came out in the first round pretty good, but he drowned, and he drowned, I thought, relatively quickly. I think he underestimated what that pressure really felt like, because I don't think we've ever seen him against that pressure. And Belal melted him. And I thought it was amazing to see kind of him get to that point. And like Mark said, just pour it on him. I did think the finish was a little early. I was kind of like, just, at least wait for this kid to drop. Like, if he drops to any extent, knee or whatever, like, let's call it a fight. But Sean Brady was still standing up. He was definitely using the cage to lean against it. So who knows how much of that was really his body standing him up. But he ate a lot of big shots. There's no doubt about it. It was a fantastic fight from Belal, regardless of whether you like the finish or not. I don't know if that fight was going to go in any different direction had it not been stopped at that point. So, got to give Belal credit where credit is due, man. He put on a hell of a performance.
Okay, Omar, sticking with you, what is next for Belal then? At 170 pounds, he just defeated an undefeated opponent. He handed Sean Brady his first loss of his professional career. If you were the matchmaker of the UFC, what would you want to do with Belal next?
So, I don't know. I don't think Gilbert Burns is doing anything, but Belal Muhammad versus Gilbert Burns, I think at this point would be a very, very interesting fight, stylistically especially. Gilbert Burns being the jiu-jitsu specialist that he is, it would be interesting to see if Belal would use that forward pressure in his striking and rely on that, or if he would take it down and kind of play on the ground with him a little bit. So I think it'd be fun to see. There's some other options depending on how long you want to wait Belal, how long you want to make Belal wait. But the Belal versus Gilbert Burns would be my pick.
Mark?
Are we official for Colby versus Chimaev? Is that definitely happening?
Not official. So right now it's the fight has been rumored. Both fighters supposedly have agreed, non-officially that they are going to fight each other.
I saw a thing that said Colby agreed. I didn't know if Chimaev did. So that's good. All right. So it probably is happening then. Also, note to all the people on Twitter for months and months who have been like, Colby would never accept a fight with Khamzat Chimaev. Looks like he did. So, okay. So if we can't use either of them, I am with you. Belal deserves a huge fight. If that fight wasn't happening, and if Chimaev was maybe flirting with middleweight, I was going to say we could do Belal and Colby. But with Colby Chimaev in the works, feels like the answer's got to be Gilbert Burns. I don't know what else you could possibly do with the men. So Belal and Gilbert is where I'm going.
Okay. All right, boys. One more full-ish recap before we jump into our lightning round.
Can I match up Sean Brady real quick?
Oh yeah, go for absolutely.
I like this matchup, so that's why I didn't want to miss the op. I would like to see Sean Brady in there with the winner of Neil Magny and D-Rod. I think either of those would be a cool fight for Sean Brady. Either we get a guy who can kind of land the long strikes like Magny can and play that game a bit on Brady too, but can also grapple with him. Or we get a guy in D-Rod who's going to try to keep it standing and keep that pace on him. So either way, we see how Sean Brady progresses off of the loss that he just took. So I that's where I'd go.
Omar, any thoughts?
It's so crazy how they only needed a few weeks to clear up whatever elbow infection Rodriguez had that had him pull out of the Magny fight the first time. I was like, didn't they? I didn't even realize
soon, right? It's like a week away or something, right?
It's like 3 weeks apart.
Oh, okay, but still soon.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's a week away from today, but as far as when the original fight was booked, it's about 3 weeks different. But sorry. Ask me one more time.
Brady, what would you do with Brady?
Any thoughts?
For Sean Brady. So the one that I think would be really interesting for Sean Brady would be Jeff Neal. I don't know if Jeff Neal would take that fight, especially with Sean Brady coming off of a loss and him being under him. But stylistically, I think that fight could be very interesting.
Okay.
I had to check it, but Jeff Neal took the fight with Shavkat.
Oh, he did?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What a fight.
Shavkat was calling him out for a minute, and I was kind of thinking, like, Jeff Neal's not going to take that. He just beat Vicente Luque. He's looking for something bigger, but he took it.
Nice.
We might have reported that on here.
Okay. Let's see. In the light heavyweight division, Nikita Krylov.
They were saying Krylov sometimes on the broadcast. The dude's name changes all the time.
Yeah, it's one of those, man. It's one of those. He defeated Volkan Oezdemir by unanimous decision. The scores read 30-27, 29-28, and 29-28. All in favor for Krylov. Omar, let me start with you. What was your take on the performance of Nikita Krylov getting a nice win over a dangerous guy at light heavy in Oezdemir?
Man, I must have been completely fucked up to even try to take Oezdemir to win that fight by any stretch of the imagination. He looked horrible as far as I was concerned, to be honest. He did not look great. Nikita Krylov he put it on him for that whole fight. He was in top control the entire time. You could hear Volkan's corner like pleading with him to do something, do anything. In between rounds, like yelling at him, like, what the fuck are you doing? You've got to do something. You've got to finish the kid. You're losing the fight. And Volkan goes back in there, gets right back down into bottom guard and just rides the fight out. I don't know. I said this last week. They're both. I'm not a huge fan of either one of them. But Volkan really just. Krylov doesn't do that. Krylov doesn't just like shit the bed like that. I don't know. Volkan's not the first time Volkan's done that. It probably won't be the last time. If I ever pick Volkan again, just fucking remind me not to, because he's
I will say these guys gave us a treat of a round one. Those boys came out swinging.
I believe the term is swanging.
Swanging and banging. Krylov was so loose early. Like, he was literally like the wiggle man, like the way he was moving. I don't know what was up, but he was so loose. And Volkan came out tight and throwing heat. And Krylov almost got in some friggin' trouble. But to his credit, he's got a hell of a chin. He survived the early onslaught. He started mixing in the takedown attempts and the clinch work. He reset himself, and he ended up hurting Volkan before the round was over to actually make that a debatable round either way. But then from round two onward, you could tell that round one craziness drained Volkan and did not drain Krylov. And as much as Krylov still did work on the feet in the latter two rounds, he realized that the takedown was going to be the key to victory for him. Volkan just didn't have the gas to resist or to get back up, and he worked it beautifully. people have called Nikita Krylov a one-round fighter before, which I get because so many of his fights end so early. But he won a hard 15 here, and he took a beating in those first couple minutes, responded, and he looked good throughout the rest of the fight. So a big statement, in my opinion, for Nikita Krylov's worthiness as a contender. He's kind of always been this fringe guy, like he'll test these borderline top 10 guys, and he's sort of hitting a point now where there may be a big fight coming up. And another reset for Volkan Oezdemir.
Yeah, man. You guys want to match up these lads real quick?
Yeah.
Last matchup.
I'll go first, I guess.
Do it.
I think Krylov has maybe stumbled into a big fight by virtue of what's going on in this division. You have Anthony Smith hurt. You have Alexander Rakic hurt. Yurian Glover's booked. Jan Ankalaev is booked. Jamal Hill has been left out in the cold. He's sitting there. There's no one that makes sense for him to fight. I think it might be Nikita Krylov. It sounds like it's maybe not quite what people thought Hill would get. It sounds like it's maybe a little big for where – sorry, not quite what Hill would get. Is that what I said? It feels like maybe it's a little big for Krylov. But, like, if you're Hill, there's no one else for you to fight right now. And I'm sure the dude's waiting to fight. So I kind of think Krylov could have stumbled into a big fight with Jamal Hill.
Nice. I like it. I like it a lot, actually. It's fun. It's fun. And that's what it should be because it's a sport. Omar, any thoughts?
You know, just another week saying Dominic Reyes needs to fucking fight somebody, so why not Nikita Krylov?
He's booked. He's booked.
Is he booked? Are we good now with Dominic Reyes?
He's fighting Ryan Spann.
Oh,
that's
all
funny.
right.
But the winner of that fight could fight Krylov. That would actually make sense.
There you go.
Guys, want to say 2 words about Oezdemir and if he fights in the UFC again, or who he fights?
I'm going to use him to test a guy who is trying to break through. We're going to get to this fight later. Dustin Jacoby and Khalil Roundtree are fighting this weekend. The winner of that fight is going to be kind of in the bottom of these rankings, looking for a fight against a more established name. I'd like to use Volkan as that test.
Let's go, Khalil Roundtree. That's my guy.
I was actually going to say Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute would have been my test.
It's a good one, too.
To put him up there with Volkan and see if he could pull it off.
Okay, we have arrived to our
A lot of recaps.
lightning round. Yes, a lot of recaps, a lot of fights that are recap worthy because this was such a stacked card. That being said, let us throw these handful of final fights of UFC 280 into our lightning round. All right, Caio Borralho defeats Mahmoud Muradov by UD. Omar, go first.
I thought this fight would have been a little bit more dominant on Caio's side. This fight was pretty back and forth, and I actually thought it was relatively competitive. Borralho definitely did enough to win the fight, I thought. But I don't know. I guess maybe I did it too much in my head where I built him up to be this like world beater. But I think he got a little, humanized in that fight, but still did enough to win a unanimous decision.
Mark.
Yeah, I sort of did expect it to look like that because Muradov is good, and as talented as Caio is, I feel like he doesn't know how to be dominant yet necessarily. Like he loses positions too often, so I sort of saw it going like that. Muradov hung tough, even on the mat, which is impressive against a guy like Borralho. But yeah, my main takeaway was that as good as Borralho's grappling is, he seems to lose control a lot, which is something that he should look to shore up. Because he'll go from a dominant position to suddenly on his back in a flash. And a guy with jiu-jitsu as good as his should have better control than that. But he was able to do more in this one. He took rounds 1 and 3 and gets another W on the resume and keeps moving up. And maybe fighting a fairly legit name in the next one, if I would guess.
All right, in the welterweight division, Abubakar Nurmagomedov defeated Omar Gadziev by unanimous decision. Mark, go first.
This one was a bit disappointing for me. I picked Gadzi. Abubakar was exactly what I thought he was, which to me still looks like nothing too special. Gadzi looked slicker. He looked like the more dangerous fighter. which I thought would be the reason he could get it done, but his cardio just absolutely went out the window after round 1, and it was noticeable from early round 2 onward, and Abubakar just seized on that and got himself a much-needed W.
Omar.
Yeah, round 1 I thought was relatively close. I thought it was really back and forth. You probably could flip a coin and figure out who won round 1. Round 2 and round 3, however, were not that. Round 2 and round 3 were most definitely for Nurmagomedov. And they were making a joke on the commentary about how I feel like every American now knows how to pronounce Nurmagomedov. And they're absolutely right, because every time we go into some MMA fight with some guy from Russia or Dagestan, it's a Nurmagomedov to some extent. And so I feel like we all have that name down packed now. Imagine looking at that name like 10 years ago and being like, what am I trying to read right now? So the evolution of the English language has now interpreted Nurmagomedov.
Excuse me. Got caught sleeping here. In the middleweight division, Armen Petrosyan defeated A.J. Dobson by unanimous decision. Omar, go first.
Yes, so kind of the way I thought this was going to go, to be honest. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of confidence in A.J. Dobson. I thought Petrosyan definitely did enough in every single one of those rounds to get the work done. I thought he would look a little bit better, to be honest. I thought his strikes would be a bit more effective than they were. But even with sort of the, the non, as dominant as he didn't look, AJ Dobson looked even worse. So to me, I was happy with the Petrosyan win, but I have even less confidence in AJ Dobson than I did going into that fight. So,
yeah, no, Dobson is like the prize pupil of Mark Coleman and all this, and there were some signs again. Like he showed him last fight too. In moments, he has moments, to put that terribly. But he had a lot of trouble dealing with the range of Armen Petrosyan, and that's exactly why I picked Armen Petrosyan. Just because the levels of kickboxing technique and experience are in very different places, and Armen was able to lean on that. And yeah, as much as it wasn't the most incredible victory, it was certainly a clear one, and he gets the W.
All right, in the flyweight division, Muhammad Makhachev defeated Malcolm Gordon by submission via armbar, 4 minutes 26 seconds of round number 3. Mark, go first.
I'll tell you what, it has been a little tougher than expected for Muhammad Makhachev. That's 2 fights in a row where he's kind of had a hard time implementing his game at times. I think people didn't think he'd see this much resistance this early. I think they thought it would have to be bigger names across from him to give him this. But I guess in a way this is expected, considering he's only 22 years old. And in the end, he did get it done. He finds the finish in incredibly slick fashion. That armbar transition was filthy. And even though it was a bit tough, the roll continues here. And he probably gets a ranked opponent next, if I had to guess.
Omar.
I mean, how can you not love Makhachev? I actually like the fact that he's going through adversity this early on. I say it constantly. I prefer for these fighters to have these kind of experiences early on, these kind of adversities early on when they're still building their name. That way, when they get to a point where, the performances are essentially for gold, they're a little bit more experienced in what those things entail. They're not walking into these title fights never having been, gone through the fire or anything like that. So I'm not against these kind of performances. And the fact that he was able to end it the way that he did in round 3, the kid's a monster, man. The kid's an absolute monster. I'm excited to see what his next fight is because he's not failed to impress yet.
Do you guys think that he's going to be in title contention at some point in his career?
Yes.
Career, yes.
Yes.
100%.
You do?
Yeah. I think the talent's there. I think he's just young and figuring it out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Do you?
I do. I like him a lot. I think he's super talented at 125. Okay, last one. In the women's bantamweight division, Carol Hossa defeated Lena Landsberg by a majority decision. Mark, go first.
This was more or less what I expected. Lena hung tough, but she couldn't handle the overall game of Karol Hossa. Hossa put herself in some trouble with that illegal knee, but thankfully for her, it didn't end up affecting the result. She had won. She was able to win that round, so it was still a draw. Had won enough of the other rounds, able to walk out with a victory.
Omar, take us home.
I don't understand why people play so many dangerous games with these illegal knees. It's really not that hard. Just don't fucking throw them. Just don't throw them.
Man. Yeah.
Regardless, Hossa's striking was on point. I thought she looked super, super slick in a lot of those exchanges. Like Mark said, this is kind of what we expected to happen we were talking about it last week. So it was no real surprise to me. I was happy that Hossa came out with the victory. Let's go.
And that does it, folks, for this lightning round. And for our recaps of UFC 280, Oliveira versus Makhachev. Boy, oh boy, what a pay-per-view. It was pretty stacked, super stacked. And it pretty much lived up to it. It was a very exciting overall card. And, yeah, man. Let's put a bow on this UFC event by finding out who rose and fell in Mark's very own ranking system that we call affectionately the Priaulx Rankings. Mark, what do you got for us this week?
All right. So we had a bunch of people that moved up like 2 spots, like people like a Belal type of win. I tried to keep it to at least 3 spots or more for guys who made the list here. So I've got 3 risers and 1 faller. The first riser, working from the top of the card, obviously Sean O'Malley. Makes the big jump. He was my number 13 bantamweight. I now have him up at number 3. Obviously, the UFC has him at number 1. I have him at 3 because I still have him behind Cheeto. Considering he lost to Cheeto, I don't think he should be surpassing him. And I actually have both behind TJ still, which I debated. Could be argued. But I've still got TJ above them at the moment. So for me, Sean O'Malley is the number 3 bantamweight. Next riser is Nikita Krylov. He goes from number 10 in the light heavyweight division to number 7. And at this point, he kind of just keeps climbing. He's on a nice little run right now and may not be done yet. The man that we just discussed, Muhammad Makhachev, goes from number 19 to number 16 in my flyweight rankings.
Wow.
He's another guy who just keeps making slow, steady climbs. He is just at the edge of my top 15 now. I am imagining his next opponent may be a ranked fighter, and we get to see kind of the true test here of just how good this man is. So we will see there. And then the one faller is Petr Yan. He goes from my number 1 bantamweight to being ranked behind the 3 men I just mentioned. So he is now my number 4 bantamweight. Bit of a tumble, but coming off back-to-back losses, so he falls down the ladder just a little bit.
Thank you, sir. And that does it for this week's recap portion of the UFC pay-per-view 280. We're not done altogether with recaps, though. Also last weekend, One Championship had a little action here. One on Prime Video 3, Lineker versus Andrade. Let's see. Let's talk about this main event. John Lineker versus Fabricio Andrade. It ended in a no contest due to an accidental groin strike that was so severe that Lineker was unable to continue. It happened in the 3rd round. The official stop time of was 2:44. Omar, why don't you give us your take on how the fight had been progressing up to that point and the way that it unfortunately finished?
So I thought this fight was very interesting and very much going the way I feel like I talked about it last week. Andrade was able to use his length. He was able to use his length very well. I thought his strikes were fantastic. His kicks were fantastic. He was keeping Lineker at bay for a majority of that first round. Once we got into the second round, Lineker was trying to pour it on a little bit more, came with a little bit more forward pressure. Definitely landed a lot more shots on Andrade in that round. Went to the body a lot more in that round. But I did think Andrade's defense was pretty solid throughout. And then once we got to the 3rd round, we had that accidental nut shot that eventually led to not only Lineker, not being able to continue, but Lineker's cup actually broke as a result of that groin strike. So before you jump and start talking shit about how John Lineker might be a pussy or whatever, grab a cup, get a baseball bat, break the cup on your nuts, then come back and just let us know how that went.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't envy that, not even a little bit. So, if we're being honest, I had Andrade winning that fight. I did not see that fight changing based on what I was seeing in those moments. It's obvious that Lineker is one of those guys, though, that could have put him out at any moment. He did land a few shots on there, and Andrade had a chin, but Lineker has shown that he can land at least a punch and knock somebody out quickly. So, if the fight had went on, it might have been different. I didn't see that being the case. I thought Andrade was winning that fight right up until that moment.
Mark, what was your take?
That's funny. I actually thought that fight was really close up until that moment. I haven't rewatched it to score it. Now I almost want to. But either way, that fight was wild. Those boys were beating the hell out of each other. First off, Andrade looked like a giant. Like, all these places that I was looking are listing these guys at 5'6" and 5'3". There is no way there was a 3-inch height differential between them. The top of Lineker's head was at Andrade's chin. The guy's got to be 5'10". I don't even 5'9" at least. Like, it wasn't. There's no way he's 5'6". But as Omar said, he looked really good early. The length and the size was working. Right out of the gate, it even felt a little bit like, oh shit, what is John Lineker going to do? Because he's in trouble. But being the veteran that he is, he started mixing in the wrestling. It helped him to change the fight. Once he did, he started finding more opportunities to rush inside and land those big shots because Andrade had to think about it. Andrade, to his credit, adjusted and continued to score. Lineker's eye was looking gruesome from the jab of Andrade. And I honestly thought it was a really competitive fight. Lineker had started to land some bombs. I had it pretty close through almost 3 rounds. Unfortunately for Andrade, and maybe this is where he kind of jumped ahead, he lands a huge knee to the stomach of Lineker. And Lineker almost doubles over. And then, to his credit, he does kind of pop back up and make sure he's defending himself. But for a split second, it was like, oh, fuck, he might be done. It was a big knee to the gut. But then he immediately, as Lineker is backing up, follows it up with the massive knee directly to the cup. And he throws heat on the knees, so I'm not surprised the cup broke. So Lineker, in a way, got a little bit of a break, maybe, because he was literally fighting with one eye at this point. And he had just got rocked in the gut. And again, scoring-wise, I thought it was close. Who knows what would have happened? But in that moment, it was not a great moment for Lineker, and he happens to get hit in the cup. Maybe he got saved. I'm not saying he acted at all. The guy looked like he was in a ton of pain. And Lineker is certainly not a guy who's looking for a way out. But maybe a little bit of a break. And I am actually very excited to see this fight hopefully get run back because the size contrast and style contrast made for a really intriguing fight.
We should also point out that Lineker did not make weight for this fight.
Correct. He was stripped of his belt.
Yes.
The belt is now vacant.
Yeah. Only Andrade was able to win that belt that night.
Yeah, he pulled a Charles.
Charles. All right, let's move on. Let's see. Let's go inside the MMA sphere now. Omar, give us the nitty-gritty on the headlines in the MMA world.
All righty. We've got a couple things to go over. First and foremost, Anderson Silva in the news. So he had an interview leading up to his fight with Jake Paul here this weekend. Says that he's been training with a lot of professional boxers and, been sparring and stuff like that. And then told reporters that he had been knocked out twice in boxing, in sparring.
Not great.
So one, let's say that's true. Why the fuck would you say that to anybody? That doesn't even remotely make sense. That's one. Now, number two is he has since then, his coach has since then said that ain't true. And Anderson Silva has then rolled it back and said that he misspoke. He says English is not his first language. Knocked out was not what he was trying to say. It's a good save, in my opinion, but
right.
If you were trying to say hippopotamus, I'd give that to you. Knocked out. Knocked out is like
he knows
a
what that
word
means.
that you say on a daily basis if you're a fighter.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You know what knocked out means, my guy.
I mean,
Come on
maybe
now.
he just like, and if giving him the benefit of the doubt, maybe he just was trying to be like, my training's going so well. I train with such great guys. They kick my ass every day in the gym, kind of thing.
That's what I'm kind of thinking.
He said that he exaggerated a little bit.
That
Either
being said,
way,
man, if what happens is that Jake Paul ends up knocking him out, and I hate even saying those words, then it's almost like Anderson's giving himself an out. You know what I mean?
I guess.
Wait, you just said that fight is this weekend?
It's October 29th.
29th.
Shit, we should have previewed that one a little bit. I didn't know that was this weekend. I don't pay attention to the non-MMA stuff.
Well, they also don't do a great job at promoting things either.
Yeah, I haven't seen much, man.
Well, yeah, the boxing world is so sort of like fragmented.
Yeah.
Gotta get Tommy in here, man, to talk about Jake Paul, Anderson Silva.
I can only imagine what that man is probably going through with this fight right now.
I am actually interested to hear Tommy's take on Jake Paul's boxing.
I'm sure it will be out. Check out Boxing for Tommy O'Neill's take on Jake Paul and Anderson Silva.
Shout out to Tommy O'Neill, Boxing.
Hopefully Anderson Silva has not been knocked out twice in training. No one needs that negativity going into this fight.
No.
But good luck to Anderson Silva this weekend. I swear to God, this kid better not knock out Anderson Silva. I'm going to be so pissed.
Please, God, no.
Next on the list, running with the Jake Paul theme here, boxing judge and Eddie Hearn are suing Jake Paul for $100 million in a defamation lawsuit. Promoter Eddie Hearn started the lawsuit originally, stemming from Paul accusing Hearn of fixing fights by bribing judges. He made that public. He said it to multiple media outlets. Eddie Hearn was in that business. When people accuse you of fixing fights, tends to be a pretty serious accusation. One that could, not only ruin somebody's career, but get their licensing revoked and all other kinds of things. So they're not taking it lightly. They are suing the shit out of him. The boxing judge that was there for the Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor fight and the Usyk versus Joshua fight, Paul has accused that man of fixing both of those fights. So Paul put himself in some hot water right here because it's pretty cut and dry as far as I'm concerned, but we'll see what happens. But he could be shelling out quite a bit of money. Next on the list, if you guys have not heard, Bellator and Rizin are going to be fighting in these cross-promotional fights on New Year's Eve. It will be contested under Rizin rules, so they will include soccer kicks and knees to a downed opponent, which kind of changes the game a little bit. From what I understand, the champions are going to be involved, so AJ McKee, I believe, is on that card, along with Patricio Pitbull, or Patricky Pitbull? Patricio. So that'll be super interesting. When we have more information on that, we will definitely give it to you, but just know it's on its way.
Yeah,
That's cool, man.
They did one of these 3 years ago, back in 2019, on New Year's Eve, too. Same deal. At least I think it was neat. Now I'm curious. So, yeah, I love it. I love when they go this route.
It's fun, man.
I wish we had a little bit more consistency with cross promotional fights, but I know that there's always going to be one side that frankly doesn't need it. Like the UFC doesn't need to do cross promotional fights. They don't.
No.
Right.
They don't need to.
Sure.
But imagine if they did.
I know, dude. I think about it all the time. I would fucking love it. I would love it.
Like imagine if Israel fought Gegard.
AJ McKee versus Volkanovski right now is all I want. It's all I want. But
All right, what else you got?
all right, that does it for all of the news. Let's get into some fight announcements, and then we can get into this weekend's card. Jakar Close is out against his fart with his
Fart. He's out with his fart. Got it out there.
Let's try that one again, shall we? Jakar Close is out against his fight with Mark Madsen. Madsen will now be facing Grant Dawson at UFC Fight Night on November 5th. Jack Della Maddalena versus Danny Roberts has been added to UFC's November 19th event. William Knight versus Marcin Prachnio has also been added to UFC's November 19th event. Paddy Pimblett returns to the octagon against Jared Gordon on December 10th at UFC 282. Bryce Mitchell and Ila Topuria is official and has been added to UFC 282 as well. For those of you who listened last week, there was a lot of back and forth between Bryce Mitchell and Ila Topuria on whether they were going to fight or not. Bryce Mitchell's fight had fallen out. Ilya was trying to fill in short notice for November, I believe. Bryce didn't want that, so it looks like it finally shook out to them fighting on December 10th. Raul Rosas Jr. versus Jay Perrin will be fighting also at this UFC 282 event. For those of you who are unaware of who Raul Rosas Jr. is, he is now going to be the youngest UFC fighter on the roster, fighting at 18 years old. Won his UFC contract at 17. Wow. Fighting in the Contender Series. So
that's crazy.
This is a big stage for him to start off on. So it'll be very interesting to see how that works out.
That's amazing, man. Good for him. That's crazy.
Yeah.
18.
Alex Perez out of his fight against Amir Al-Bazzi.
Alex Perez never fights, ever.
Well, the boy who always fights, Brandon Royval, will be stepping in to fight against Amir Al-Bazzi. That fight will be going down on December 17th in Vegas. Katlyn Vieira versus Raquel Pennington added to UFC's Vegas card on January 14th. Lauren Murphy versus Jessica Andrade added to UFC's 283 card on January 21st. Da-Un Jung versus Devin Clark added to UFC's Fight Night on February 4th. Along with that, Jiyeon Kim versus Mandy Boehm has been also added. And last but not least, Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa has been added to UFC's 284 event on February 11th.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Middleweight
Wait, is
division.
that the same Volk Islam event?
I believe so. Perth.
Oh, boy. If that is Islam Volk, Aljo Cejudo, and Whittaker Costa, that is a hell of a card.
We also alluded earlier to Hamzat and Colby fighting. Just FYI, the plan is to have them fighting in London at UFC 285 under the Usman Edwards 3 fight.
Wow, same card, huh? That makes sense. So they can insert one of them if need be into the title fight.
It's probably how they got Colby to take that fight.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. All right.
That's all I got for you boys this
Cool,
week.
man. Let's move on. Mark, you have a quick recap for us, or not recap, a quick touch on Bellator 287 coming up this weekend?
Yeah, so I'll just give you a little brief notes on it. There is nothing too special on this Bellator 287 card. No fight that we're even going to bother breaking down here. After such a recap-heavy episode, we do want to get to a few UFC previews. There are some bigger fights on that card. This one is Bellator 287 Piccolotti versus Barnaoui, I believe. Barnaoui. I'm not 100% sure how you say his name. This is his debut in Bellator, actually, and he's in the main event, which is wild. But he's a guy who made his name in Road FC. A lot of finishes, variety of finishes, jumping knees all the way to a whole bunch of submissions on his record. So he's an exciting fighter. He is going to main event against Adam Piccolotti, who's a solid lightweight on the Bellator roster. Reason being, this event is taking place in Milan, Italy. And I guess Adam Piccolotti, though he is born in America, obviously he is of Italian background, and I guess he is the most Italian choice they had on the roster. So he's in the main event in Italy. So it's going to be him versus Barnaoui. So that could be an interesting fight. Few others on the card that are worth paying attention to. And the co-main is Fabian Edwards, obviously coming off that knockout of Lyoto Machida. He's going to be fighting Charlie Ward, who is always in scraps, win or lose. So that one could be fun. You have Saul Rogers on the card fighting Tim Wilde. Rogers is a quality lightweight coming off a win over Georgie Karhanian. Justin Gonzalez is on the card, a guy who people like. His only loss so far is to Aaron Pico. He's fighting Andrew Fisher. Davy Gallon is a guy who's on an entertaining run right now. Or is it Gaillon? He's French. I always forget which way that's said. I think it's just Gallon. He's got back-to-back finishes in Bellator. He's fighting Daniel Scatizzi. You got Costello Van Steenis, who's one of the better middleweights in Bellator. He actually just recently beat Fabian Edwards, so he's on the card. So it's a lot of these names that are worth watching. There's actually a fair amount of close fights. It could be an exciting card, but there's no huge appeal name-wise to this one. So that's kind of the rundown for the week. I believe it's on Friday as usual with Bellator, so I'm sure it's worth checking out as a little appetizer to the UFC action on Saturday.
Cool, man. Thank you for your input and your intel. And now let us look ahead to this Saturday night, October 29th, UFC Fight Night, Kattar versus Allen, going down at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada, headlining Calvin Kattar, Arnold Allen in the UFC featherweight division. What a great fight at 145 pounds.
It is.
We're going to talk about 5 of the fights on this Fight Night card. Before we get into any of the ones that we have handpicked for our listeners and viewers, are there any other fights or fighters that you guys want to spotlight and tell our viewers to go check out?
I'll throw out Tresean Gore fighting Josh Fremd. Tresean Gore, obviously 0-2 in the UFC. Came in with some hype off the Ultimate Fighter. He's a guy who obviously carries a lot of power. Some people were excited about him. It has not translated. He's probably fighting for his job in this one. Fremd is an action guy. He'll definitely try to lean on the grappling and the pace against Gore. Gore will probably try to lean on the striking, but that should be an interesting one, and I could see Gore come out hot trying to save his job. So that's one I would keep an eye on. And I'll say real quick, I misspoke. The Bellator event is actually on Saturday daytime since it's in Italy, so it is literally an appetizer to the UFC, one after the other.
That's cool.
One fight that I'll point out is Joseph Ugly Man Holmes. He's been an interesting person to watch. I'm still not 100% sold on his game, but he is a very interesting watch. He's very good when he's very good, and he's slipping when he's slipping. So I want to see exactly what the consistency looks like this weekend. But I do find him quite intriguing, so I'm keeping an eye on him.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm a fan of Jun Young Park's game. That's who he's fighting. But Holmes is going to have a big size advantage on him in terms of height and reach, so he could get it done.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of height and reach, the first fight that we are going to preview for our viewers and listeners is going down in the heavyweight division. Andrei Arlovski, the ageless wonder, taking on Marcos Rogerio de Lima. De Lima, 37-year-old Brazilian. He's 6'1" tall. Weighs in at the heavyweight limit, even though he's only 6'1". He weighs in at the limit of 265, or right around there. The man is a monster. He is out of 28 professional fights. He's 19-8 with 14 knockouts, and he is coming off of a loss against Blagoy Ivanov. Excuse me. And then we have Andrei Arlovski staring across the cage. 43-year-old, originally out of Soviet Union. He is now fighting out of Chicago, Illinois, according to the Wikipedia. He's 6'4". Usually weighs in the 240 range. Arlovski, he has, I haven't counted, but he has a bajillion fights under the UFC banner. He is riding a 4-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Overall, as a pro, 34 wins, 20 losses. Of his 34 victories, 17 have come by knockout, 14 decision, and 3 submissions. Most recently, he's coming off of a victory against Jake Collier by split decision this past April. Mark, let me throw it over to you. What's your take and your pick of Arlovski versus Rogerio de Lima?
I got to check something quick. I'm feeling like I wrote these odds down wrong. Wow, I didn't. Wow. Surprised it's this wide. Andrei Arlovski is a 2-1 underdog. He's plus 200. Marcos Rogerio de Lima is minus 245. I thought I was about to be a little bit bold. I guess I'm not being so bold after seeing those lines. I don't know why. For some reason, I feel like this is going to be the one for Andrei where he gets caught. He's been living a little dangerously. He's had some close fights. I mean, he's won 6 out of 7. So what can you really say? But I just have this feeling like one of these days it's going to have to catch up where he kind of starts to fall off. He is 43. De Lima hits really hard. He can be aggressive early. As I said, Andrei's been playing it close. He's been exchanging. I don't know if he can avoid the big shots and play that point fight kickboxing game that he kind of employs now. And I also think that De Lima's ability to mix it up with some takedowns, and he's a big dude, as you said, I think that mix could kind of allow him to get in and land with some big power because Arlovski's thinking about it. I'm going to say Andrei gets caught. I will say Marcos Rogerio de Lima, round 2, knockout.
Nice. Omar?
That's exactly what I think is going to happen.
Really? Wow. Are you an Arlovski guy? I didn't see that coming.
Honestly, like, I've been less and less of an Arlovski guy over the years just because of the fight style that he's employing lately. It's not the Arlovski I signed up for. It's not the Arlovski I grew up with. You know, the Arlovski that I fell in love with was the man who was a savage with his fanged mouthpiece and his nonstop aggression. And now he's like, you know, content to work on the outside and not really go for the finish. And the fact is that man hasn't really had a decent chin in quite some time. And I feel like if he gets hit, well, I mean, he's got miles to him, don't get me wrong. And he's found a great way of defending himself.
True.
You know, in the last few years. So, I mean, he deserves credit there, but it's just not super exciting anymore for me. And like Mark said, De Lima hits super fucking hard. And if, you know, De Lima lands one on Arlovski's chin, it doesn't take much for Arlovski to go down. He doesn't even need to be put out, really. He just needs to be put down. So, I think De Lima could do it. Both of them have shown that their games can be screwed with, though. So, who knows what can happen, but my guess would be De Lima gets it done. I also think round 2, knockout.
Look, Rogerio de Lima is no spring chicken either. He's 37 years old himself. But I agree with you guys. I think that the Arlovski train, 43 years old, he's got, I mean, over 50 fights. He's got 56 fights. Good God, man, at heavyweight.
Crazy.
Yeah, the train's got to come to an end at some point, and I think this big Brazilian is gonna put it on him a bit, and I see De Lima getting him out of there. I'm gonna say round 1 knockout. That's what I'm gonna say.
Damn.
Okay, let's move on. In the middleweight division, Phil Hawes, no hype, Phil Hawes, is taking on Roman the Caucasian Delice. So we have Phil Hawes. What's so funny?
I'll never fucking understand that name, dude.
No, which one? The Caucasian?
The Caucasian?
Well, he's Georgian.
Is it because he's from the Caucasus?
Yeah, I think so. That's where the Caucasus Mountains are. It's in Georgia, I think.
That's got to be it.
Look it up.
Caucasus Mountains form a border between Russia to the north and Georgia to the south and Azerbaijan to the southeast.
To an American, it's kind of a funny nickname. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Phil the BIPOC Hawes. It's very strong.
So
anyway,
Caucasians are not just white people. They are specifically people from this area.
Yeah, dude.
Have we been using Caucasians the wrong way then?
No.
I don't think it's Caucasus. I don't think it's a real term for people from the Caucasus.
It is.
No, dude, it really is. Wow,
Yes.
It really is.
Okay.
It is the term for people from Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, parts of North Iran, and central southern Russia. What the fuck? How did that just become the name for white people?
Because, like many racial terms, that it actually has a quite racist origin story, which I'm not going to get into on this podcast. It's not what this podcast is about.
Right,
but maybe there might have been a researcher who was like, this is clearly the most perfect form of human beings from the Caucasus Mountain ranges. And I think it was because of like their skull shapes or something like that. I read this in a book about race. Anyway.
All right.
It's a super term, and it's stuck, and it sucks, but that's what it is, Let's talk about this fucking fight.
Let's.
Okay, Roman Dolidze, out of Georgia, 34 years old. He's 6'3", nice height for middleweight. He is 10-1 as a pro, 5 knockouts, 3 submissions, riding a 2-fight little streak here coming into Saturday night. Most recently knocking out Kyle Dawkins. Phil Hawes, 33-year-old, fighting out of New Jersey. He is 12-3 as a pro, 8 knockouts, 2 submissions to his name. He's coming off of a win against Darren Wynn. Mark, let me start with you this time. What's your take and your pick of Hawes versus the Caucasian Dolidze?
So Hawes is favored. He's minus 175. Dolidze is plus 145. My man, Mr. Underappreciated Phil Hawes, is going to get it done again. I think it is going to be really hard for Dolidze to take Hawes down. I think he really relies on controlling guys against the fence, and Phil Hawes is just not that guy. I don't think Phil Hawes minds the pressure. I think he's going to have a big advantage as a striker. His striking was so clean in his last fight against Darren Wynn. And frankly, it has been for a while. He got caught by Chris Curtis, but he was even piecing up Chris Curtis in that fight. The dude's hands are underrated, as is his whole game. I can't wait till he gets knocked out now, so I sound stupid. But Phil Hawes gets it done, resists the wrestling and pressure, leans on the striking, round 2 knockout, puts down Dolidze.
Omar.
Round 2 TKO, I meant to say, excuse me.
I've actually been going back and forth with this fight. I don't have the same confidence in Phil Hawes as Mark does. I think it has to do more with the performance. The Darren Wynn was a fantastic performance, but I'm also not a huge Darren Wynn fan, so it doesn't really carry as much weight for me. On the other hand, I find Roman Dolidze to be very exciting. I do think he has opportunities in his game because of how exciting he is. I do think that if one dude is going to hit the other, who would I guess is going to get knocked out first? It would probably be Dolidze. So I'm going to go with Phil Hawes by knockout. I'm going to go round 1.
I too like Phil Hawes in this matchup. I like the power differential. I think Chris Curtis kind of he made the Hawes hype train stop for a moment, but I think it's going to keep on rolling to the next station. I also like Phil Hawes by TKO round 2. Let's go. Okay, next fight up in the light heavyweight division, Dustin Jacoby taking on Khalil Roundtree. Jacoby coming off of that nice knockout win over Daun Young, right? Mm-hmm. Let me see. Let me pull it up here. Give me 1 second. I'm a little behind on my clicks. Roundtree, no secret to this podcast, he's like one of my favorite guys in the sport right now. The Warhorse, fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada. He's coming off of a 2-fight win streak, most recently defeating Carl Roberson by TKO with that crazy body kick on the ground where he moved Roberson like 3 feet. Jacoby, like I said, coming off of that nice knockout win over Daun Jung. He is the 34-year-old fighting out of Illinois. He is 6'4", so really nice height for the division, for any division really. He's coming into this Saturday night with a 4-fight winning streak. Omar, let me start with you this time. Give us your take and your pick of this really nice fight in the light heavyweight division between Dustin Jacoby and Khalil Roundtree?
It is a very interesting fight. Dustin Jacoby has found a lot more success recently. He's had a lot more consistency. Thailand Khalil Roundtree is still really like 50-50 if we're looking at the record. He's looked fantastic when he's winning, but he still has lost. So I love Khalil Roundtree. I find him to be very exciting. I love his striking. I don't think he's perfect, though. Dustin Jacoby has shown that he has the ability to weather storms and still come back and still put it on guys. So, as much as it pains me, I will be picking Dustin Jacoby to win. I think he stops Khalil Roundtree, and I think it happens in the second round. TKO.
Wow.
All right. Jacoby is favored. He's minus 170. Khalil is plus 140, which is pretty much what I was expecting this fight to be around. I love me some Khalil Roundtree. His kickboxing is nasty, but he is going to be across from one of the best kickboxers in the UFC in terms of true kickboxing credentials in Dustin Jacoby. So it's interesting. I'll be really interested to see whose technique is better. It may be Jacoby, honestly, technique-wise. Like, he's more so the guy that just outclasses you in the striking department, whereas Khalil is more so the guy that kind of walks you into a death blow. So it could be that, like, Jacoby's winning until he's not. It could be one of those. Khalil has had success against other credentialed kickboxers. Remember, he welcomed Gokhan Saki to the UFC, put him out. Lesser scale, though, Carl Roberson does have his own kickboxing credentials. Khalil just handled him, as Mike said. I don't know. Jacoby's got a 2-inch height and a 4-inch reach advantage, which is significant. Maybe Khalil's kicks can help nullify it some, but Jacoby's got nasty kicks as well. I feel like going off historical results, the pick here is Jacoby. He just looks better against a larger variety of people. He's always able to kind of implement his game, keep himself safe, whereas Khalil has been a lot more up and down. When he's great, he's great. Sometimes he loses to a guy like Marcin Prachnio, and you're like, how did that just happen? Part of me feels like it's his time and that he's got to break through at some point, and maybe it's now. I don't know. I feel like it's easy to say Jacoby just stays on the outside. He's got a great chin, never absorbs anything too big, and wins on the cards. But I feel like it's also easy to say that Khalil finds a kill shot with the way that he's fighting right now. And I didn't write down a pick on this fight prior. We're going to flip the coin. Khalil Roundtree. Round 2 TKO.
Let's go.
Somehow finds it. I don't even know how.
To your point earlier, Mark, there are times when we are thinking with our level heads and thinking rationally. And then there are other times where you just go with your guy. And I'm going with my guy. I'm going with Khalil Roundtree. Yeah, man, I love his I love that he's like a strict Muay Thai practitioner in MMA. And I'm going to go Khalil Roundtree by TKO, round 2. That's it. It's going to be another...
Yeah, I think I called Khalil a kickboxer. Obviously meant to say Muay Thai specialist. If I did say that, that was a misspeak.
Yeah, man. All right, here we go. Co-main event of UFC Fight Night. We have Tim the Dirty Bird Means, still one of the best nicknames in the sport. Tim Means taking on Max Payne Griffin. So Tim Means, the 38-year-old, fighting out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's 6'2". As a professional, he's 32-13 with 1 draw and 1 no contest. Of his 32 victories as a pro, 19 have come by way of knockout. Also 5 submissions to add to that. He's coming off of a loss against Kevin Holland back in June where he got Bravo choked, whatever that means. I don't remember being any kind of special choke. His opponent, Max Payne Griffin, the 36-year-old fighting out of Sacramento, California. He's 5'11". He's 18-9 as a pro with 9 knockouts to his name. He also is coming off of a loss, his at the hands of the great Neil Magny back in March of this year by split decision, which snapped a 3-fight winning streak for Max Griffin. So both of these welterweights are looking to get back into the win column. Mark, why don't you go first and give us your take on this matchup and ultimately your pick?
All right, Max Griffin is the favorite here. He's minus 185. Tim Means is plus 145. This is not easy. They're close. They match up close. Max Griffin has looked much better lately. Tim Means is never an easy night. I think these guys are pretty damn even everywhere this fight goes. Tim Means maybe has the edge in terms of that he can snatch a sub more opportunistically if they end up grappling. Max maybe has the edge in that he's the better athlete. He's probably the quicker guy in there. But they're both capable in the grappling departments. They both are nice strikers, technique-wise, power-wise, mixing it up. I could see it go either way, but I think I'm going to favor Max right now. I feel like his game is rounding into the best place it's been. I know he did just lose, but he arguably didn't even lose. I think I scored it for Magny, if I remember, but it was really tight. I think the speed helps him. I think he lands more. I think he mixes in some calf kicks and edges the decision over Tim Means.
Nice. Omar. Excuse me.
Yeah, this is another one that's difficult for me because I don't hold a lot of confidence for Max Griffin. For me, a lot of his victories haven't been, he's got to win against Carlos Condit, which if that was a 2013 Carlos Condit, it'd be a different story. I just feel like Tim Means has a lot more quality wins in his resume than Max Griffin does. I do agree Max Griffin is going to be the faster fighter in there. I think Tim Means will be kind of reacting a lot more than setting things up as much as I think he'd want to. However, the one thing I love about Tim Means is his elbows. Whenever anybody gets inside, it's basically like walking through a wood chipper. I think at some point Max will have to enter that range. I don't think he'll be able to stay outside the entire time. I think potentially he gets chewed up in those moments. I think Tim Means is going to have to go through some shit, but I do think that I think Max Griffin comes out with a unanimous decision.
Max Griffin. Oh, I thought you were going to say Means.
I was.
To me, this is an easy pick. I'm going to take the younger, more athletic fighter in Max Griffin. I think Tim Means is kind of over the hill. He's a super talented fighter, a very talented striker. With his experience, it brings also a nice well-roundedness to his MMA game. But I'm going to go with the guy who seems to be on the rise in his career, who's younger and more athletic. I'm going to take Max Griffin by decision, 3 rounds, and I'll say 29-28 to get a little specific. All right, boys. This fight night is going to be highlighted by the main event, which is such a great fight. Going down at 145 pounds, these two featherweight headliners are Calvin Kattar and Arnold Allen. Let me just quickly pull up these two men's statistics here. So Calvin Kattar, he is the 34-year-old. Oh, let me go back real quick. 34-year-old fighting out of Massachusetts. He is 23-6 as a pro with 11 knockouts, 10 decisions. He's coming off of a split decision loss against Josh Emmett. By the way, he's 5'11". Arnold Almighty Allen fighting out of England. He's only 28 years old, so on the rise, entering his prime right now as an athlete. He's 18-1 as a pro with 6 knockouts, 4 subs, and 8 decisions. And he's cruising, man. He's on a 11-fight win streak coming into this weekend, undefeated thus far in the UFC. Omar, let me start with you this time. Give us your take and your pick of Kattar versus Allen.
So I love both of these guys. I think both of these guys are extremely talented. On any given day, I think both of these guys can win. I have been pretty high on Arnold Allen, though. I think this is his time. I think this is the moment for him to shine. He has a number of quality wins on his resume, on top of the fact that the man hasn't lost in the UFC. It's hard to pick against him right now. Calvin has shown a hell of a lot of grit when it comes to the fights that he's lost. He's only lost to really good guys, in recent memory. And he's looked fantastic in the wins that he's had in recent memory. So, definitely not somebody I count out, not somebody I discredit at all. I just think it's Arnold Allen's time. So, I'm going to go with Arnold Allen. I think it'll be a hard-fought fight, but I do think it'll be in a unanimous decision for Allen.
Mark.
All right, this is basically a pick'em.
Is it really?
Calvin Kattar is even money plus 100. Arnold Allen is the slight favorite minus 120. I love this fight. Really high-level fight. Going to be a really big win for whoever comes out on top. I love that it's 5 rounds. Calvin Kattar, as we said, took a tough loss in his last fight. I'm sure he is chomping at the bit to bounce back here after that loss to Josh Emmett that some people thought that he had won. He'll have a 3-inch height and 2-inch reach advantage over Arnold Allen. And I think he does match up well in that the jab and the clean technique of Kattar I could see causing problems for Arnold, who's a bit more of not a brawler, but he kind of likes to throw wider shots, and I could see him getting picked at by the jab as he kind of loads up and looks to land those. But he does start fast. He's a hell of an athlete. I could see him putting it on Calvin Kattar out of the gate, but with the durability of Kattar that we now know well, I do think Kattar can survive that and potentially adjust as the fight goes on. Arnold Allen has definitely not been through the fire yet in the way that Calvin Kattar has. So I'm inclined to trust Kattar more in the later rounds. I also trust his cardio more. Obviously, Allen has not lost yet in his career, so it's hard to pick against the guy. But you could also argue that Calvin Kattar has fought like 5 or 6 guys already who are better than anyone Arnold Allen has fought. Arnold Allen's best opponent so far is probably Sadiq Youssef, I believe, unless I'm forgetting someone.
Dan Hooker.
Kattar's got, what'd you say?
Dan Hooker.
Okay, or Hooker. All right, either one of those. I don't know who you want to say is better at this point in Hooker's career. But Kattar's got a good 5 guys you could argue are higher level than any of them on his resume. So he's been in there with a higher level. I know Arnold can go to the wrestling, but Kattar, if you remember, he's shown us before how good he can be there defensively to nullify a wrestler. I just think he's not going to go away. I could see Arnold Allen having moments early. I think Kattar's just going to stay in there. I think he's going to stay in there. I think the jab is going to start landing more as the fight goes on. I think the range is going to start appearing to be more in Kattar's favor as he figures it out, figures out the timing. He's prone to be in these close fights sometimes. He was just in one with Emmett. I could see this one being similar. I'm going to say he gets it done. 48-47, Calvin Kattar.
Wow. Omar, remind me who you picked?
I'm going with Allen for this one. Unanimous decision.
Are you D for Allen? Wow. I think if it goes the distance, it's going to have to be a Calvin Kattar victory. But I'm going the opposite way. I'm going to go... This is a hard fight to pick, man. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and make a strong pick here. I'm going to say Arnold Allen. I'm going to say he gets Calvin Kattar out of there for Calvin Kattar's first TKO loss of his career. I just love the explosiveness and the pop and the power of Arnold Allen at 145, and my man is rising. I love Calvin Kattar, and I'd hate to see him take this L, but I'm going to say that Arnold Allen gets him out of there. TKO, I'll say 3rd round.
That would be enormous if Arnold Allen could do that.
It'd be crazy. That does it. That does it.
We did it.
I hate to say it. I don't have trivia because I knew this was going to be a 4-hour episode, and it is almost 10 after midnight. And
Wasn't terrible.
Daddy's got to go to bed.
We kept the pace pretty good.
Oh, well, I think
sometimes
we probably have one thing, right, for at least the for the fans, because I think we've talked about it ourselves.
What, the lightweight title note?
Yes. You want to give that to them?
I could give that to them. So this was a thing that I stumbled on leading up to the pay-per-view this weekend. Wait here. Sorry. About the lightweight title. So the last time that the lightweight title was lost in the cage was when Eddie Alvarez got knocked out by Conor in November of 2016. Since that time, that title has never been lost in the cage, which is mind-blowing when you think about it. But I'll give you guys what happened from that point. Conor obviously won the title. He goes to fight Floyd. Ferguson and Lee fight for an interim belt. Ferguson wins. He gets hurt. Khabib ends up fighting Ally Quinta for the vacant belt. Khabib wins. Khabib fights Conor. Wins. Khabib is out. Poirier and Holloway fight for an interim belt. Poirier wins. Khabib then defends against Poirier. He wins. He's out again. Gaethje fights Tony for an interim belt. Gaethje wins. Khabib defends against Gaethje. Wins. Retires. Oliveira and Chandler fight for a vacant belt. Oliveira wins. Then he defends it against Poirier. Then he loses it on the scale before the Gaethje fight. Defends against Gaethje. Now this weekend was a vacant title, and Islam is the new champion. So still, since Eddie Alvarez lost it in 2016, the lightweight title has never been lost in the cage. If someone actually beats Islam in the cage, that will be the first time since. Pretty wild.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Good call on that, because we did intend to share that on the show. That was definitely share-worthy. Glad you remembered.
What I heard was Conor McGregor was the best in the world.
All right, shall we go to bed?
Let's go to bed. And enjoy this fight night this weekend, as well as fights from Bellator. That's it, boys. It's been a fun episode, a lot to talk about. So many angles. I love it when there's a just stacked card with so many angles to talk about.
Yes.
That's why I love this shit.
It was a fun one.
All right, folks. We will see you next week.
Later, people. Thanks for listening.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.